Okay, there we go. I think this will fix it. Mm. Hey, roasted pork belly, how you doing, bro? Good to see you, man. Welcome in. Been a minute. How is life on the other side of the proverbial pond? Pretty good, thanks. We finally got some nice weather. Dude, it's been beautiful over here in Canada. 30 plus degrees every day. It's been glorious. We had a very, very long and very, very cold winter. So it's just nice to like go out in shorts and sandals and like not worry about how many layers I'm wearing.
You're alive. I'm
Oh
glad
my
to see another
God.
living soul. The miller. Now I would appreciate it if you could.
So how's 3.26 treating ya?
Reach Clearfell. Find. Rest now.
Okay.
See about this miller.
This isn't loading. Yeah, are you gonna stay for the video premiere? I'm assuming you'd be curious since this is my first time ever playing Path of Exile. All right, guys, this isn't fair. I can't even see what's going on here. I can't tell if these crabs are invisible or what. 3.26 with the mercs has been fun, but server lag has been getting kicked has been really annoying. Oh no, I thought they addressed that. Okay, bloated miller is fully invisible. Guys, this is bad. Where is this man? Oh, there he is. Hello.
Skill always beats raw strength. Well done. Please come inside.
Yeah, I thought they addressed the whole server issue thing. Yeah, Stealth Miller. Oh my god. Thankfully he doesn't have the hardest mechanics cuz Jesus. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my internet right now. It's should be fine.
This far.
Something's going on with my game.
Ren,
I might just restart my game.
the discipline.
That's silly. Yeah, so server issues are still bad right now, or have they gotten like considerably better? Because the league has been out for a couple weeks now. I'm surprised they don't have it sort of dialed in. It's not as bad as it was, but it's still bad. Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope it gets ironed out. From what I've heard, playing in Europe, anywhere in Europe on the GGG servers has just been not great. Okay, it looks like things are loading in. That's good. Down a little bit. Yeah, apparently Europe is just not where it's at right now to play, which blows, dude. That's so many people that are affected. Candle, welcome in, dude. So I'm being a little bit of an asshole right now, and I haven't put up the new pod episode yet because what's happening is I'm leaving for 3 weeks on Monday. So I'm staggering. I have 3 podcasts this week. I'm staggering them 1 week at a time. So the Scrimps episode will release probably tomorrow. And then the podcast that's being filmed today will be released next week. And then I have a very special guest on Sunday whose episode will come out the following week. So that's sort of the plan. Sorry that you can't do the full Scrimps one. You'll have to wait until tomorrow, but the episode is a banger. Me and Scrimps had an it's all yes. I'm trying to make sure that my channel just doesn't die while I leave for 3 weeks. So I'm like really buckling down with content today and this week so that I can have some stuff for you guys to watch while I'm gone. It's a really good episode though, man. I love Scrimps. We had such a good conversation. I'm really excited for you guys to hear it. And yeah, it's gonna be good. But yeah, I will be exporting and uploading that so that it releases tomorrow morning. I wanted to give my new video some love, you know? Oh, I should do my... Wait, I did my sentence here. You listened to the first half, then stopped to watch the rest of the League of Legends tourney. Oh, that's fair. So you got like a good chunk of it then. We probably talked about Path of Exile for like 5 minutes in that time frame. We were like going off about like life and like everything. It was really good. And sorry about the delay on my responses. The YouTube messaging is a little finicky sometimes. Hey, what's up, girl? Wow, you haven't played PoE 2 in so long? Dude, I mean, why would you? You have fresh Path of Exile content to play. So, I mean, that takes precedence. If you're a PoE 1 enjoyer, it's a good time right now to play. But it's funny, going back to PoE 2 after not playing it for a week or so, like, the differences are quite jarring. And the graphics are, you know, pretty apparent which one looks better when all the textures and things load in. Bro, what is this? Are you gonna come back to PoE 2 eventually there, Roast, or what are you thinking? Probably come back for 0.3? Right now, I'm working on an Acolyte of Chelua on hardcore solo self-found. This is sort of like a little side project character of mine.
Nightmares have no power against the light.
We're gonna go bows eventually. But for right now, I'm just doing rake easy. Oh, I should add Try as a friend. Okay. Just on your first character this league, then I got plans for others. Also started a guild. Oh, so you're locked in for the good next little while. That's awesome, man. Is it a guild with your community or with a couple friends?
You sensed it too, did you?
Uh-oh.
Creature.
Now or never. Push on.
Do we think this is a server issue?
Damn it all. Away.
Did I somehow get put onto the European servers?
Back to the soil.
Community members, some are very experienced folks with 5 or 6K hours who are helping you learn. I wouldn't say 1.4K hours is noob, dude. I'm a noob. I got 30 hours in PoE 1. That's pretty bad. But I went in completely blind, and it was actually really enjoyable experience. But it made me appreciate like PoE 2 more, if that's weird to say or not. But yeah, I can definitely see if you've been playing PoE 1 for a long time, like it's a crazy good game. There's so much to do. If you haven't been playing for a long time, it's very overwhelming. Especially if you're going in like blind. Why is my shield charge not working? What's going on with the game today? Which build are you playing right now, Roast?
A remnant of the old magics. Creature.
Playing a bleed juggernaut with complex trauma. Okay, I know what the first half of that is. I played Juggernaut too, dude. On my playthrough. I went Sunder Fizz damage. I went Sunder Fizz damage with endurance charges and I had some bleed as well, but I wasn't like purely expecting to bleed. D1 has bad gameplay, hard to go back and get past Act 1. True. I wouldn't say the gameplay's bad. I would say that the campaign is not great compared to PoE 2, which is how every like new player will experience the game for the first time. So I think that acts as sort of like a great filter to like a barrier. Whoa, it's a big barrier to entry for a lot of people. Like, dude, it took me like 20 hours to beat the campaign. Like, obviously going through it the first time very casually. Like, I wasn't blasting or anything or trying to do it quick. I was just playing through, experiencing it, you know, seeing what all the different systems were and stuff like that. And I know roughly what I'm doing because I have 1,000 hours in PoE 2. Dude, if you're a brand new, like, PoE player who has never played any of the games, like, it could easily take you, like, 40 hours to beat the campaign. Which is crazy.
I won't be getting
But yeah, I wouldn't say that the gameplay of PoE 1 is bad. It's just, it's very different than PoE 2. Like, the visual clarity is something that I find really distracting in the game. Like, it's really hard to see what you're doing. Like, it's really hard to see what's going on. Like, the game that I think got visual clarity perfect is Diablo 2. And Path of Exile 2, until you get to a very late point in the game, is quite good as well. Used Sunder for the campaign and swapped Bone Shatter, then farmed for the Transfigured Gem once I was tanky enough because self-damage. Okay, cool. Yeah, Sunder is really good in PoE 1. Like, it's no question. It's way better than the PoE 2 version. Watching people play Endgame is so bad on PoE 1. It's just hard to understand what's going on. There's so many things on screen. There's so many projectiles. There's so many, like, you have a row of buffs. Like, it's insane. I don't know how anybody knows what they're doing. It's also very spammy, it feels like. Like, you can make your character basically cast, like, insanely fast.
The old ways still hold.
There's quite a few things that I don't love about it, and if you're sticking around for the video, I definitely go into more detail. I'll probably save the conversation for then. But I don't hate the game. Next time I go back, I'll definitely go back with a build guide because I just played like on my own shit, and it was fine. Like I didn't struggle, but there was a lot of stuff that I felt like I was not doing properly or I was missing out on something. There's just way more to do in the end game. The end game also just feels like its own separate game from the campaign. Whoa, what is that? What is that damage? Their very first campaign blind took 115 hours. See, there you go. And that's your first time playing the game ever, right? Like, good for you for making it through that. That's wild, bro. 115 hours. Holy. Oh, shit. We got a VIP in the chat. Welcome in. 115 hours, damn. So guys, if you are here and you want easy XP, just reset the checkpoint and kill all these mobs over and over again. That's what I'm doing. You can easily do this up to like almost level 50. Lots of magic monsters spawn here. Usually do this until about level 50 and then ascend, but I've already done the Chaos Trials on this character. I do need to find a good bow though, so I can make the swap over. Yeah, you fully explored everything and cleared everything. My first time playing an ARP. Oh, it was your very first time playing an ARPG. That's crazy. So I started doing that. And then what happened was every time I would full clear an area, I was exploring, I was looking for cool stuff. I ended up getting way over leveled. And I was like 10 levels over from like for the campaign. It was so weird. So like nothing felt challenging because I was over leveled, so I just stopped exploring. I don't know if that's intended or what. Oh, sometimes you get some currency. Dude, I'm lagging, bro. I don't know why. I've been having like latency issues. Welcome in, bro. How is the voice? Is the voice sound okay at least? Oh, guys, is this the Instrumentus we've been waiting for? Okay, let me re-plug in and plug in my camera. Yeah, let's do that. All right, guys. One second. Something is weird with my. Is it working now? Is this better? Is this better, guys? Oh, let me adjust my settings here. Still better, but slightly desynced. I feel like it's okay. Maybe it's because I have the game open. That might be why. If you want, since you edit your stuff in post, you can slap on the camera and use that to sync. Oh, I got you. I got you. Hopefully it's not an issue for the podcast. Oh, it's happening only when I have PoE open. Hold on, we gotta mess with this. I think I know what's happening here.
Malicious presence lingers here.
Hold on, guys. Sorry about that. This wasn't happening before, but I updated my drivers last night, and it's been messing with some game settings. Yeah, I don't know why that is. I think there's a setting to like pause. Let's do windowed full screen. Yeah. Super delayed. I wonder why that is. Ugh, so annoying. If it's getting worse over time, it's probably something with your refresh rates. Okay, let me check my display settings. Yeah, everything seems fine on the display setting stuff. Maybe if I move this to a different window. Yeah, I don't know, dude. That's so weird. Whoa. Whoa. You had something like this happen before with your capture card? I'm not using a capture card though. I'm just straight up like playing off the camera and computer. Let's look it up online and see what's going on. Right, but the camera itself is running on a different source. Yes, true. Maybe I should change my encoding settings? Hmm. What about... I don't know. I don't know what to say about this. It's weird because it only happens when PoE 2 is running. Like, as soon as I open the game up, it becomes super laggy. Let me try resetting the game. Like, if I'm just on face capture, I think it's fine, right? Like, it's not delayed or messed up. Don't tell me I have 2 OBSs open. No, I don't. Hmm. Let's try it again. So annoying, dude. Without the game, it seems fine. As soon as the game gets launched, now it gets all weird. Life of being a content creator. Oh my god, bro. It's just annoying when stuff works fine 1 second and then it doesn't work the next second. You know? Like, this was totally working fine yesterday. Something's going on with my computer. Yo, big release in 10 minutes. Yo, welcome. I'm sorry, I'm just figuring out and welcome in, Anton. Hello. Yeah, sorry, I'm just figuring out some technical issues with my computer. Apparently, I can't play Path of Exile now and have a good looking video or face cam. I don't know why. It's super weird. I'm not worried about it for the pod. I'm just worried about it for just in the future. Like, as soon as I pull the game up, it gets super laggy and desyncy. I don't know why. Like, Anton, you were in chat yesterday and it was fine. We were playing, hanging out. The game seems to be running well. But, I don't know. Does it seem bad now? This seems fine, right? You're assuming the CPU is putting it all into one thread? Well, there's been an issue with camera desync, but it seems to be a little bit better right now. How does it look on you guys' end? Does it look Fine. It's fine. Okay. Maybe the longer it's going on, the more desynced it's getting for me. Okay. Huh. So annoying, dude. It looks like it's a little bit better now. It's a little laggy. Maybe there were small moments of it yesterday, but as well, but it wasn't bad. Okay. Yeah, because it was really bad like a second ago before you got in here. Not sure. Yeah, that's okay. I think this is manageable for now for the next couple minutes. Yeah. But it's okay now, I think. It's like manageable now. How are you doing today, Anton? How's Finland, bro? Are you back in Denmark now? It's great. Sunny 24/7. Beautiful. Yeah, we have a lovely day here in Canada. I'm just north of Toronto right now, and it's like 30 degrees. Beautiful weather. Very, very nice. Can't complain about that. Do you guys get really bad winters in Denmark too? Like really cold, really long? But your sun isn't actually going down here. It doesn't. Well, what the hell? It's not going down? I guess because of where you are located, like the days are just super long to the point where it barely gets dark. Is that it? Yeah, winter's depressing in Denmark. Okay, yeah, I feel you, bro. Winter is definitely depressing in Canada too. You're in the north of Finland. Okay. That's crazy. It's kind of like that movie Midsummer, bro. It goes down for an hour. Whoa, that's so weird. What the hell? That's super weird. That would mess me up. That would mess me up for sure. Maybe I should upgrade my CPU. I'll do that when I come back from my work trip. Oh, now it's super laggy. Ugh. Yep. Super laggy now. First time I tried, it's a real experience. Oh shit. All right, I'm gonna log out.
The old ways still hold some power.
Path of Exile 2 just doesn't want to cooperate with my webcam today. That's all right. Oh, it's so much nicer now without the game open. It's crazy. Guys, 4 minutes. 4 minutes till the premiere. Put on some music. So we're gonna watch the new vid here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Watch this clip. First time I tried, it's a real experience. Oh shit. Yeah, see, the game looks fine. It's just the webcam that's all funky. I'll see if I can look up some stuff while we're waiting here. Yeah, now it's totally fine. It's the game. It's definitely the game. I have to mess with some settings later on, but I think we'll be fine for the podcast, guys, because it doesn't involve Path of Exile 2, which is the thing that's actually messing up everything. Yeah, I wonder if it's a USB port. They both like my webcam and my mic are both USB, but they're both using their own connections. How long did it take to make this video? So I played Path of Exile 1 for about 30 hours. So there was 30 hours of gameplay and then about a week of editing. So it took a long time to make this video. Like it probably took about 2 weeks of time. So I think that's the way I'm going with my videos though. Like I'm going more in a direction of like spend the time on a nice piece of content, then do a bunch of smaller and shorter and less effort pieces of content. I think I've gotten to that point just because I like this format and this style more, but could change in the future. I don't know. Makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I really like, I don't know if you've had a chance to watch this video, Anton, but I did that Diablo 2 versus Path of Exile 2 video that I really, really enjoyed making. That one took me about 2 weeks to make as well. About a week and a half. From like, you know, doing the script, thumbnail, finding all the footage. It's just it's a labor of love for sure. But that video is my best performing video now by like a factor of like 2. So I feel like people appreciate the, I don't know, the effort and the content. Yeah, you saw it, you really liked it. Yo, thank you, man. So yeah, I think that's kind of the way that we're gonna go with this. Guys, is that way too loud? I know the answer to that. All right, so you may need to go into OBS in the audio settings on OBS when you're not streaming and change the sample rate. Sorry about the volume, guys. I'll change the sample rate for sure. I appreciate you looking into that, bro. Thank you. Yo, the premiere is like music is like vibes, dude. Ooh. Oh shit, guys, we got talkative try in the chat. What does this little crown mean, guys? What does this crown mean with the number 1? He's your number 1 gifter? Wait, he's gifted me something? Ooh. Yo, this beat is hidden. Okay, here we go, boys. Here we go. All right, let's get this out of the way. I've never played Path of Exile 1. I never beat the campaign, I never ran a map, and I never even crafted a single item. Fast forward to 2025.
This guy's never
and
played
now
anything.
I'm a certified PoE 2 addict. I'm over 1,000 hours deep since launch. Naturally, over time, I started to wonder, if PoE 2 is this fun, how good was the original? So I went back into the belly of the beast. No build guides or tutorials, completely blind, to see what I've been missing out on this whole time, all to bring you the most accurate first impression I could. My goal in this experience is to give PoE 1 the fighting chance I never gave it before. Complete the campaign, hit level 80, clear some maps, craft some items, ascend a few times, and poke around in the secrets of the Atlas expansion.
Damn, that's a lot of
All while
goals.
relying only on what I've learned in PoE 2. What I found? Let's just say it wasn't what I expected at all. This is my brutally honest, slightly confused, and occasionally terrified journey through Path of Exile 1. A story told through the eyes
Oh, I'm sorry
of a
about the
PoE
ads,
2 player
guys.
who thought he was ready. I wasn't.
Subscribe if you don't want ads. I'm sorry, I can't turn
After
them off.
downloading the standalone client and launching the game, I was faced with the first and most important decision you have to make in an ARPG. What class should I play? I picked the Mercenaries League and SSF because Pain builds character. But at the character select screen, I was surprised. No class info, no descriptions, nothing. Just vibes. I went with the Marauder, who looked like the classic warrior type. I named him First Time Freddy, and I jumped right in.
I thought that was
I
so
woke
weird
up on the beach
that they
and
have
got
no
hit by
description.
something immediately. Absolutely terrible graphics. I was playing on a gaming laptop with a 3070, and this game looked like Diablo 3 in 2013. I almost uninstalled right then and there.
I did.
And 10 minutes of tweaking my graphics settings didn't help. But I was committed, so I pushed on, eyes bleeding, shuffling down the beach. The click to move controls took a minute to get used to, but 2 decades of Diablo 2 muscle memory kicked in, and I got adjusted pretty quickly. The tutorial was pretty standard. Kill zombies, loot, learn about skill gems, and fight a boss, which I totally didn't die to and killed without getting hit once.
Bro.
After reaching town, updating my drivers, and restarting my laptop, it magically fixed the visuals. Now the game looked surprisingly great. The NPCs were impressively voice acted, adding character.
Hey, exiles. I just got back from a nice quick trip to Canada with my family.
Then came a big shock.
I love you, Try.
No gold except for gambling. The economy and trading with NPCs utilizes currency items only. My inner SSF hoarder kicked in hard, picking up and selling everything like a true loot goblin. Oh, and I have to point out this huge win. All of my stash tabs and cosmetics from PoE 2 carried over to Path of Exile 1. Massive respect to GGG for this. At first, I was a little confused by the flasks. 5 slots, each with different uses. but soon I appreciated the customization. The Quicksilver Flask was a game changer, especially paired with Leap Slam. I wasn't sold on the skill gem and socket system though. It felt a bit clunky and added quite a bit of friction when I was trying to experiment with new skills and support gems. There's quite a bit to say here about this, but we'll come back to this later. The new mercenaries reminded me of a better version of Rogue Exiles in Path of Exile 2. As an SSF player, I refused to hire them, so naturally, I killed them all for their loot. And sometimes, they killed me. Hardcore would have been brutal. Overall, my first impressions were pretty solid. Generally speaking, PoE 1 feels like PoE 2 on crack. Faster, louder, and way more chaotic. By level 6, I was leap slamming through mobs, chugging my Quicksilver Flask like a drunken maniac, and nuking packs with a massive Sunder hit, which I must admit feels so much better than the PoE 2 version. It's safe to say I was having fun, and armed with only my extensive PoE 2 knowledge, I blinked into this intimidating game blindly with relative ease.
Okay, he's doing good. So far, guys, he's doing good.
Now, I hate to say this, but
Uh-oh.
after 10 acts, the campaign felt like a marathon.
That's not Grandpa, Dad's just dehydrated.
It was a slow grind where I kept asking,
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
No.
Are we there yet?
No.
the early acts flowed nicely, and I was
Facts.
having fun learning the game, completing quests, and familiarizing myself with the systems. But by Act 6 or 7, fatigue hit. Environments blurred, the story felt like background noise, and bosses and monsters lacked memorable mechanics. Content was abundant, but the structure felt repetitive. It was like scrolling through the massive skill tree, but every branch just led to a slightly different version of Fireball. It also didn't help that I was over-leveled most of the way, so the campaign was easy except for a few bosses. This just happened naturally too, by just playing the game and completing the main story and side quests. Bosses were also very underwhelming for the most part, and I finally understood why people compare them to glorified rares. There were some pretty epic moments, like Malachi or Kitava for example, but the vast majority didn't follow suit. Still, the campaign forced me to interact with core systems, vendor recipes, currency, items, and skill gems, all of which were valuable for SSF play. I also found some pretty sweet unique items that I equipped, which provided my character with some interesting abilities during my campaign playthrough.
Those gloves are sick.
However, I felt like the constant introduction of League mechanics throughout the campaign distracted from the story, making the narrative feel secondary and making the campaign feel more like a giant tutorial for all of the various endgame systems and mechanics. I also wish that the crafting bench appeared earlier. It felt too hidden until too late. More obvious early nudges would have helped, or just having the bench in each of the town hubs from the start would have been nice. Ascending via the labyrinth was interesting. I appreciated the small hidden trials within the various campaign zones, which created a sense of intrigue. I definitely wasn't in love with the labyrinth though. I didn't like how it was an identical trial except for the final boss arena in each ascension difficulty that I progressed through. So yeah, the campaign is long, kinda bloated, and honestly outdated in some areas, but it is also packed with depth, and it taught me as much as I can handle about the game. By the time I reached Act 10 though, I was mentally done. I was still having moments of fun, but my enthusiasm was wearing thin. Still, I powered through and hit maps, and I'm really glad I did, because what came next finally felt like the game opening up again.
It's over.
It was a long campaign, boys. God damn.
I hit level 80 after about 30 hours playing a home-brewed Sunder Juggernaut, which focused on physical damage, endurance charges, and AoE, which was balanced defensively through a mixture of my items and passive tree nodes. It honestly felt great, and I cruised through the campaign up to T6 maps with pretty much no difficulty. I could have kept min-maxing my gear and character to improve my life, defenses, and damage, but over time, I just lost the desire to. Path of Exile 1's endgame is incredibly complex and content-rich, almost intimidatingly so. Every map felt unique with its own layouts, mechanics, and encounters, and there are a multitude of various League mechanics and systems to interact with that have been added over its 10-year development process. But all of this content as a new player made PoE 1 feel dense, maybe too dense. It has so many systems and mechanics layered on top of each other. I wasn't sure where to start, and I was worried that I was missing out on something. Some of these league mechanics and systems even have their own crafting benches, and I had a hard time figuring out the most optimal system for crafting my perfect upgrades. The crafting in PoE 1 is incredibly deep and deterministic. Items can be heavily customized from their original form. Even the standard crafting bench is so reliable for filling in gaps in resistances, defenses, life, adding sockets, or increasing damage. But with more complexity came confusion. Currency orbs combined with league-specific crafting and multiple benches made crafting a bit overwhelming. I wasn't sure what to use or when. Even beginning to start learning the ropes seemed like a massive time investment. Still, I loved the Atlas progression. Unlocking points via completing maps felt rewarding, and I could tailor my endgame to what I liked. I also loved the Scarab drops, which allowed me to further customize my mapping experience by adding different lead mechanics that I enjoyed. I also loved that map completion is achieved through boss killing, despite the bosses not even being that enjoyable. After completing the campaign, the Path of Exile endgame feels like you're being dropped into a vast, deep ocean without a life jacket. You're expected to build your own raft while treading water, and honestly, I just didn't have the energy. The core loop of running maps and farming loot is fun. I can definitely see why players get hooked, and I'm sure I would have if I spent more time there. But for me, the deeper I got, the more I thought about PoE 2's cleaner systems and lower mental overhead. I wasn't quitting because the content was bad. It's honestly quite the opposite. I was just getting exhausted. After playing the game for 30 hours, logging into PoE 1 started to feel like work, and I started recognizing that I needed to put in a lot of work to fully understand and appreciate everything. I know. It's tough to compare a decade-old game to one that's still in early access. But these comparisons are meaningful. Let's break them down. Surprisingly, the new player experience in Path of Exile 1 was better than expected, but still falls quite short compared to PoE 2. The biggest issue? Information overload. PoE 1 bombards you with mechanics early on and explains very little. League content throughout the campaign, currencies, crafting systems, socket lengths, it all hits you really quickly and with pretty minimal guidance early on. I can definitely see this being a filter that stops a lot of new players in their tracks before reaching the endgame. It almost took me 20 hours of relaxed gameplay to make it through the campaign. Despite never playing the game before, I still had my 1,000 hours of PoE 2 knowledge, which helped immensely. This will probably take a new player much longer, if they end up making it through it all. By contrast, PoE 2 actually nails the pacing in my opinion. It introduces mechanics one at a time, just when they become relevant. That thoughtful structure lets players absorb systems naturally while enjoying the best polished and most narrative-driven campaign in any ARPG that I've ever played. In PoE 1, the campaign feels more like a tutorial sandbox for endgame systems than a standalone experience. Instead of building impactful story moments and boss fights, it interrupts your flow with mechanics that you're not prepared or didn't ask for. PoE 2 gives you space. You feel guided by the main story quests, but not overwhelmed. And most importantly, in PoE 2, it feels like you're playing a game, not studying for one. Control preference is subjective, but for me, PoE 2's WASD system is a clear winner here. Especially on ranged or caster builds, separating movement from aiming gives much more fluidity and precision. Kiting, dodging, repositioning, it all just feels better. Click to move in PoE 1 has that nostalgic Diablo 2 feel, and once you adapt, it's pretty snappy. But it puts more strain on your mouse hand and gets a bit fatiguing over long sessions. PoE 2's movement feels modern and ergonomic by comparison. One thing that I missed dearly was the dodge roll. In PoE 2, dodge offers a universal, responsive defensive tool that enhances moment-to-moment gameplay. In PoE 1, movement skills do exist, but the lack of that same flexibility or safety net is obvious. Once you've felt the freedom of the dodge roll, it's hard not to have that. Overall, PoE 2's movement gives you a bit more options and flexibility, especially for squishy builds. Click to move still works really well for PoE 1's design, but it's harder on the hands and a little less flexible. In my opinion, PoE 2's gem system is a massive improvement.
So much
PoE
better.
1, skills and support gems are socketed into gear, making it unclear if upgrades are about sockets first and stats second. I passed up on good gear repeatedly because I couldn't maintain my socket setup. Chromatic orbs were scarce and experimentation felt punished. Path of Exile 2 fixes this. Skills and supports are separate from gear, letting you swap setups freely without needing to match socket colors. It encourages experimentation, especially for new or SSF players. That being said, PoE 2 still has its quirks, like how it's annoying to have to revisit early acts to grab missed low-level skill gems for certain builds. A gem vendor system like what PoE 1 has that scales with your level would go a very long way here. Passive respecking is another huge contrast. In PoE 1, you're given some refund points and can buy more with Orbs of Regret, but changes feel expensive and rigid. I found a great one-handed unique mace early on in my PoE 1 journey, but I had already invested heavily in two-handed nodes. The heavy cost of respecking made it feel unrealistic to even try switching so I could try out this mace. PoE 2 uses gold to respec and it's relatively abundant. You can pivot your build mid-campaign without completely derailing your progress. That accessibility rewards curiosity and lets players iterate more freely. PoE 1 asks you for commitment.
Large poor Vu.
PoE 2 lets you evolve. Path of Exile 1's campaign progression just felt off to me. I constantly was over-leveled for zones, steamrolling enemies with a decent weapon, movement skill, and a Quicksilver Flask. It was fun for a bit, but over time it started to lack tension or any sort of struggle. Then came the endgame, and the difficulty ramped up hard. Suddenly I was planning around map mods, resistances, and crafting. The campaign and the endgame almost felt like two entirely different games. In contrast, Path of Exile 2's progression is slower and more rewarding. You start off weak and slow and feel every upgrade and really earn your power. That pacing creates a sense of meaningful growth, and in my opinion, your character's arc feels like a real journey from Castaway Exile to Demigod throughout the campaign into the endgame seamlessly. PoE 1 feels like you were just supposed to blast through the campaign to get to endgame as quickly as possible so that the real progression of your character could begin. While I didn't explore in depth all that Path of Exile has to offer in terms of crafting, I can safely say that PoE 1 is the clear winner here, but not simply because it has more crafting. While PoE 2 is moving in a promising direction, its systems still feel incomplete. GGG is working to balance determinism while still prioritizing loot on the ground, but it's still not quite there yet. PoE 1's crafting is vast. Essences, beast crafting, bench crafting, various currencies, it all adds up to an intricate, rewarding system that allows for fine-tuning and long-term planning. Even with just 30 hours, I saw how deep this goes. It's not beginner-friendly, and it can be overwhelming, but the mastery it offers is undeniable. PoE 2 may one day offer a streamlined but deep alternative, but for now, PoE 1 is the king of crafting. Despite only dipping my toes into PoE 1's endgame, I can tell it's the game's strongest feature. The Atlas system, league content, and endgame specific crafting tools form a massive sandbox of unique encounters and choices. It's content rich and endlessly replayable. Yes, it can be very dense to bite into at first, but even a taste of it made me realize the depth and complexity that PoE 2
That kid's mouth is so big.
Grinding Gear Games has already improved PoE 2's endgame significantly since its launch in early access, and it's clear they're still iterating on it. If GGG can take PoE 1's decade of endgame design and wrap it in PoE 2's structure and polish without adding too much bloat, we'll end up with something truly special. A game that honors its roots but modernizes its systems for a new generation of players. Jumping into Path of Exile 1 completely blind, armed only with 1,000 hours I've poured into PoE 2, was honestly a way better experience than I expected. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty intimidated going in. PoE 1 has this reputation, this aura of, if you don't follow a build guide, you're gonna break your character and hate your life. And yeah, I definitely saw some of that fear floating around leading up to the 3.26 launch. But once I actually got in and started playing, all of that fear just melted away. This is because nothing really beats that feeling of discovery on your first ARPG playthrough. Learning systems by playing, getting surprised by mechanics, Figuring out how to craft items and build your character, that's the real magic. And Path of Exile 1, for all its complexity and quirks, absolutely delivered on that sense of exploration. If you've never tried it, I genuinely recommend giving it a shot. Even if you've only played PoE 2, there's a ton to learn and appreciate here. And it really did help me to appreciate PoE 2 even more. So, do I still prefer PoE 2 overall? 100%, for all the reasons I covered earlier in this video. The smoother pacing, cleaner systems, and modern controls. But that doesn't mean I'm done with PoE 1.
Dude,
It's a
they're
really,
funny. I like the
really good
clip. I like
RPG,
the clips,
especially
bro.
if you've been playing it for a long time. And I fully planned to jump back in from time to time, probably with a build guide next time, just to see how deep the rabbit hole really goes. Which game do you prefer more, Path of Exile or its sequel? Are you a PoE 2 Andy like myself who decided to try out the original game for the first time? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like, it helps way more than you think, and make sure to subscribe for more PoE 2 content. Also, check out my podcast where I sit down with a bunch of different PoE 2 creators and discuss the game, life, and everything in between. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, I'm going back to blast some more PoE 2. Peace.
That's it, boys. Yo, try. Welcome in, dude. Bro, how did you like that NPC voice act? That voice acting joke. Oh, I'm very happy you got to see that one live if you did watch that. I love you, bro. You jump scared yourself. Oh my god, bro. I every time I watched that one back, it made me giggle, so I knew it was a good one.
Hey, Exiles. I just got back from a nice quick trip to Canada with my family.
Then came a big show.
Oh man, love you, Try. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really loved making that video. If you guys liked the video, make sure to hit the like button. It means a lot. It helps, push the video out there. Classic YouTuber spiel. And yeah, I appreciate you guys hanging out, watching the video together with me today is awesome. I love premiering these videos with you guys. I love hanging out with you guys and watching. It's so fun. Awesome. Seriously, great vid. Thank you, dude. Awesome video, Blaze. Honestly, refreshing to have somebody saying the things that I think a lot of people are feeling. Also, not making the divide between the two games bigger than it already is. Dude, I like PoE 1. That's the thing. If I wasn't so addicted to PoE 2 right now and loving it so much, I would be playing PoE 1 constantly. And wow, you destroyed the campaign. I struggled way more my first time. Bro, it's only because I had that 1,000 hours in PoE 2. If I didn't have that, I would have gotten wrecked. I would have bricked my character. Absolutely, no questions asked. There's not a doubt in my mind that 1,000 hours in PoE 2 is basically what carried me through into PoE 1. Without a doubt. Any new player getting into this game blindly, bro, holy, there's no way you're gonna get through the game as quick as I did. PoE 2 is the best tutorial for PoE 1. I mean, yes and no. There's so many more things on top of PoE 2 that PoE 1 has. So yes, you learn, the very basics of things, but there's so much more to PoE 1 than there is to PoE 2. And I think that's why I stopped at the end game, is because essentially it's like that Matrix reference where it's PoE 1's the red pill, PoE 2's the blue pill, and I just wanted to wake up in the Matrix. I didn't want to go into the real world. You know what I mean? PoE 2 just needs content to add more agency to player progression. Yeah, 100%. And that's going to come with time, of course. Right now, they're very much so, still very much so in early access. I'm not making that as a be-all, end-all excuse, but it's just I said in the video, it's hard to compare a game that has 10 years of development over a game that has 6 months of development. But one of the takeaways that I had was PoE 1, if even 1/10 of the stuff that's in PoE 1 gets ported over to PoE 2 and is reformatted in their own way, I really like how I was talking about what this was scrims yesterday. I really like how the breach was handled differently in PoE 1, versus PoE 2. PoE 2's breach is when you open up that portal and you step on that hand, it's like a danger zone. The monsters in there are fucking terrifying. and they're shooting chaos shit at you, and like you have to be like on your toes. Whereas like in PoE 1, it felt very much so like all of the stuff is just dying instantly. Dude, what a banger vid. Yo, Kevin, welcome in, man. Thank you, bro. I appreciate the kind words about the video, bro. I love the video. I loved making the video. Took me a long time. Like these videos take so much time, guys. Like playing the game, script, editing, like all that kind of stuff. So really means a lot that you enjoyed the vid. I appreciate you guys watching. And yeah, we're gonna jump into a podcast with my dog, with my homie Lex, right now. So let's call this fool. All right, we're calling him. He is a dog. Hello.
Hey, what's up, man?
How you doing? How you been, bro?
I've been really good, dude. That video was excellent. Yeah,
Thank you.
Your effort really shows, man. I just want to say it was awesome. I was there for the premiere. I watched the whole thing. It was great.
You're a
Well
real
done,
one,
man.
I appreciate you watching the premiere, hanging out. I appreciated seeing your messages in chat, dude. Okay, so you asked me where I find those clips. I had someone share in one of my Discord servers that I'm in a meme of that kid with his mouth just like wide open, and I was like, this has to be Photoshop. Like this can't be real. This kid's mouth can't
Right.
be that big. And then I found a
right.
clip of him with the cheeseburgers, and I was like, there's no way that's real, but it is. This kid's mouth is
You're
just
like,
like an
"Wait a second."
alligator.
Yeah.
It's like a hippo. And so I was like, man, there has to be a way I can like use this clip in one of
That's
my
so
videos.
crazy.
I know.
Just a real life X-Men. That's so wild.
Pretty much. His superpower is being able to eat burgers in 4 burgers in one bite.
Right.
All right, so
oh
I'll
wait,
get
Han,
you-
so to
fire-
set up, yeah, how should I set up?
Fire up your webcam for me on Discord.
Let's see what I got here. Turn this on. Get this set up. Is it
Oh,
working?
there
Hello,
he
hello?
is. Hello.
Howdy.
Look at this beautiful man. All right. Are you able to like zoom in at all, or should I do that on my end
Let me see.
with your
Yeah, is the
Elgato hub?
quality gonna look bad? Let me see.
Should be
Elgato.
fine. Guys in the chat, if anyone's here, can we get an audio check? How do I sound? How does Mr. Lex sound? Maybe Lex say a little something for the chat.
Here, I tried zooming in. How's that look? Is that too much?
That's good. Now, can you reposition it down at all so that you're a little bit more centered?
Let me
It looks
see.
like
Yeah,
it looks like
let
you're
me
just peeking. It
try.
looks like you're just peeking over like a little
I was
wall. Like,
looking over the frame.
hey!
Yeah, let me see here. Is this also in the Elgato hub? I am a noob at this. Let me see if I can find the position.
So in my Elgato hub, if you adjust the tilt, like the zoom, in the same thing as the frame, there's like a little blue square where you can kind of drag it around and reposition
Let me
that.
see.
If not, I can readjust on my end, and you can just reset it back to the way it was before.
Wait, can you drag it up? I'm wondering if there's anything you can do on your end, because that part is not showing up for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe reset it back to the initial size it was. Sorry, guys, we're just gonna adjust his video stuff real quick.
Classic technical issues.
Yes. More? Yeah, can you just zoom out fully? Like fully zoom out? Yeah. There we go. Beautiful. Yeah. Move you over like this. Bada boom, bada bing.
I know you're big on visual fidelity, so I apologize. You can blame me.
I just want you to look your best.
I appreciate it.
How does that look for you? If you're watching,
I think
my
that looks really good. I am.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that looks great.
Yeah.
All right.
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna link your stream real quick to my Discord so they know that we're doing this.
All right, sounds good. And then I got my
Yeah.
questions pulled up here.
For sure.
Sweet. Beautiful. All right. I think we are good to go here.
All right. I think we're good on my end as well.
Anybody
Cool.
listening, how does he sound? If anybody's here, do a little voice for us just to check.
Check. 1, 2. Hello.
First question. Okay, we'll answer this before the podcast starts. Lex, how is your back after carrying Blaze through HC duo solo southbound?
I saw it. It's weird. I feel like there's a balance. It's funny that you mention it that way. I'm in there and I play nothing but melee, so I'm basically tanking as best as I can. Blaze is doing more damage than me, and I just feel bad for Blaze because he almost died last time because of an unlucky attack. I would say that bird. Oh my god! It wasn't even the tornado. The tornado bird almost killed you without using the tornado. He used the tornado, but it was the swoop that was the danger. That was, oh man, that was so wild. So
Bro, that bird like kamikaze dive bombed me, and I had no idea because I don't usually like fight the bird that long to see those mechanics. Like I usually try to kill him before he does the old twisty.
yeah,
And so when he did the dive bomb, I didn't even know what to expect. But that was a very nice answer. You know, like you're not carrying me, I'm not carrying you.
we complement each other,
that
man. That's the
much.
best way that I can put it. I think, I think we complement each other. I really like that you're playing range and I'm playing melee. It feels fun in that way. It's like reminds me of like an old school, I don't know, like WoW party comp or something, going through a dungeon. We're just, complimenting each other. It's great.
Dude, we're 2/3 of the Holy Trinity. All we need is a healer. Like, is there like a is there like a healer class we can like get in here so we can get some
Templar,
buffs?
man. Whenever Templar's in, we're doing it.
We need Templar to come in with power word fortitude so we get like, that extra stamina, extra life.
Exactly.
Shout out to all the WoW nerds out there. All right, guys, we're going to hit the record button. We're going to start the podcast, do the cheesy YouTube intro, all that kind of stuff. In 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Passive Tree Podcast, a podcast dedicated to talking about life, Path of Exile 2, and everything in between. On this afternoon, on episode 12, we are joined by our very first ever repeat guest on the podcast. You know him, you love him. He's a Shield Warrior Giga Chad. Give a warm welcome to Lex. Welcome on, and how the heck are you doing, man?
I appreciate it. What an intro. And yeah, honestly, genuine honor to be the first repeat guest on your pod because your pod's awesome. I just got to throw that out there. Your pod's awesome. I watch every episode that I can. I think I'm only one episode behind at this point, but yeah, seriously, huge honor. I love listening to all things Path of Exile. And yeah, man, it's great. Thanks for having me on again.
Of course, bro. I mean, I get it. You love the podcast. I know that opinion's kind of biased because you're a second time on now, but I appreciate the kind words. It's great to have you on here, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come hang out. This, guys, just a heads up, this podcast is going to be a little bit different since we had a podcast with Lex before where we got to talk about nostalgia, we got to talk about his gaming history, we got to talk about all that fun stuff. If you're interested, I will leave a link to that episode in the description of this video so you can go back and watch episode 1. This episode, however, we're going to be diving deep into the discussion about Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2. So just the TLDR, Lex and myself have just gone back and played through 3.26. Myself, it was my very first time playing. Lex, it was your first time in like years and years and years. And so we're going to kind of touch base now after we've had our toes dipped back into this game, Path of Exile, and really see kind of where we stand with it, how we're feeling, and see how our experiences were. Does that sound good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hell yeah. All right, so let's jump into it. First question. So now that you've gone back and you've played Path of Exile 1 for, I'm assuming, quite a bit, like maybe like 30, 40, 50 hours. I don't know exactly, but I know you've been playing quite a bit. Generally speaking, how's the experience been?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, and yeah, you said that I had played it before. I played back like 12 years ago when Dominus, it was the last boss of the game. I think, yeah, he's the Act 3 end boss, I believe. And that was the end of the game for me back when I played it that first time. So it has changed substantially since then over the course of a decade. But I will say that I overall enjoyed my experience with it. Obviously, very similar to some of the opinions you expressed in your video. There are some hesitations, some clunkiness, and some things I just did not enjoy about the experience. But I would say, for people who do love Path of Exile 1 and say it's like their favorite action RPG, I would say that I get it. It's not mine, but I can see why it is. There's a lot going on in it, and it was good. I am still playing it. I want to get like a thorough experience of the end game, but I'm starting to feel kind of what you mentioned in yours, where I'm just like, it's still feeling a little bit like a chore at this point. I'm feeling the draw back to Path of Exile 2. So that's kind of where I'm at the moment.
Okay, very cool. So you're still playing, you're still trying to basically experience what I've gathered to be more of the end game stuff, which is super cool. You've lasted longer than me. I bounced pretty quickly after about like 10 hours in end game. I was like, I see the door. I don't have the desire to go through this door right now.
Yep.
So let me ask you this. For me, it took me about 20 hours to get through the campaign. I had another person in here, Roast Pork Belly. Shout out to Roast Pork Belly. He came in and he said his first campaign playthrough was 115 hours. And I was like, holy shit, bro. Like, how did you, first of all, the determination and willpower to get through 115 hours is insane. And he was, full clearing every zone and exploring and doing all that. How long would you say it took you to kind of get through the campaign the first time?
I think it took around your amount of time. I think a little over 20 hours, if I'm remembering correctly, because I was going like more of a tankier build, not focusing on damage so much. I was mostly spamming Shield Crush. That was like my ability of choice to kind of clear mobs and go, take down bosses. So I was using Shield Crush, and I still am. I'm using Shield Crush of the Chieftain now, which is like the alternate version you get from Ascension Trials that does fire damage. But anyways, yeah, I got through a little over 20 hours, I believe. And sorry, what was the original question? You said something about the time that it took.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. Like, I just was wondering, like, how long did it take you? Try was just in here, and he said that I crushed through the campaign really quickly, a lot quicker than he did. So I'm just trying to gauge, like, was my experience and your experience similar in terms of time frame, or was your experience longer? I'm just trying to sort of gauge where we were at there.
Right. That's right. So I remember what I was going to say. Yeah, I can see, so you said roast pork belly took so much longer and he was full clearing each zone, and I totally could see why it would take that much longer. That was one of my bigger, like, kind of hesitations with it, was just how many zones there were through the campaign. I kind of started preferring. I was thinking back to Path of Exile 2 and how people called that campaign a slog. And I was like, going through Path of Exile 1, I'm like, this feels like more of a slog to me than Path of Exile 2's campaign, because Path of Exile 2 feels like it has less zones. They just happen to be bigger. Path of Exile 1 has like smaller to medium-sized zones, but there's just so many of them, And I personally, I am one to full clear zones when going through an action RPG. I actually started skipping zones pretty regularly after a certain point. I think starting around like Act 5 or something. I was like, I need to get through this. I was just using Quicksilver Flasks to just get to each like objective, to just get to the next area if there wasn't anything important, etc. So yeah. I think that's why probably you must have done something similar, because we got through the campaigns fairly, I guess, relatively quickly, because at some point we're like, we just got to get through this,
100%. Yeah. Very, very similar experience on my end. I initially jumped in and I loved like going through the different zones and exploring them to their fullest capacity. And you're right. Some of them are like quite small and some of them are like kind of medium sized, of course, comparing to Path of Exile 2, or especially like in Act 3, some of the larger zones. I was like, oh, okay, these are manageable. But I really did find that as I was not over exploring, just exploring, I found that I was getting way over leveled. Like, I looked at my level and I was like,
Yes.
why am I 10 levels over where I'm supposed to be right now? Like, I should be like in the next act at this level. And that reflected in my gameplay experience, because I was just destroying everything so easily and so with like basically without any resistance. And I don't know if that's a mixture of being over leveled, having, a good or a decent campaign build or something like that, or if that's just the way the campaign feels in general. But either way, it wasn't the most pleasant experience.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I remember thinking the same thing, honestly. Just like, oh yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. Honestly, that's pretty much the same thing here. And yeah, I mean, the thing that's something I mentioned in my video, like on my channel, which is way worse than your video, by the way. Your video is so good. Please, it's just, oh man,
we're gonna
highlight
link
on
it.
so
Don't
many
worry,
of these.
guys. We're gonna link his
No,
video.
don't worry. Only if you want to compare our takes, because they're very similar. We differ on very few things, honestly. But yeah, just I felt the same way, where I was getting over leveled and I was finding items that were like getting 10 levels below what my character was. I'm like, I want better loot. I nothing is hurting me. I need to get like out of here. That's I felt the same way. I just need to speed through and get like, essentially have the campaign catch up to where my character was at. Is kind of how it felt.
Totally. And I know that there's a system in Path of Exile 2 where essentially your XP is like affected by like a formula based on the level of the zone you're in compared to your own level. And so, for instance, what comes to mind is whenever I get to Act 1 Cruel in PoE 2, I go to the Red Veil. I'm usually around level 44, 43, and I farm the Red Veil until level 50. And then that kind of sets me up to basically take on the rest of Act 1 and Cruel on hardcore. But it felt like that system wasn't in play in PoE 1, where it just felt like despite me being like 8 or 9 levels over, I was still getting enough XP to still level up in these zones. So
Yeah.
I'm curious if
Yeah.
anybody has any insight, please leave a comment. I would love to hear sort of how they handle that in terms of the XP
Yeah.
scaling in Path of Exile 1. All right, so let's move on to a funny question. So I watched your video. I made fun of you on this privately. I'm going to make fun of you on this publicly now. So
Please, publicly, yeah.
I watched your video and I noticed throughout your gameplay footage that there was a lot of loot on the ground. And I ascertained that you didn't have a loot filter on for your whole campaign playthrough. What was that like?
What gave you
Did
that impression?
did you have any inclination of like, man, there's a lot of loot? Or was it manageable enough so that like you felt comfortable playing through the whole campaign without any sort of like loot filter or anything like that?
Yeah, kind of the latter. I mean, also, I've told you this. I'm just lazy and like I'm the type of guy, even back in my World of Warcraft days, where I don't like getting add-ons. I like to try and use as much of the base game or getting by with as much of the base game as possible. And I was noticing that there was quite a bit of loot dropping during the campaign. It didn't feel overwhelming at a certain point. It was like it was okay, it was manageable. Towards the end of the campaign, I started noticing, all right, maybe I should get a loot filter. Maybe it probably would have helped towards this latter portion of the campaign. And then when I hit maps, I was like, all right, I need a loot filter. Like as soon as I hit maps, I was like, this is too much. I need a little loot filter. So I finally got one, and I should have probably just had one the whole time. But you know what? Again, I was just lazy.
Fair enough. I mean, for me, it was something that I got. I didn't get it right away. I got it in Act 2. So playing through Act 1, I was just kind of like, really experiencing like the vanilla gameplay for everything that it had to offer. And then by around Act 2, there was a lot more stuff dropping on the ground, a lot of white items, a lot of socketed items. And so, went over to the Neversink, Filter Blade website, grabbed myself just like the basic generic filter. And what I found from getting that was it was highlighting a lot of shit that I didn't even think to pick up. Like one thing that I mentioned to you was the triple linked socket multiple colored items. So it started highlighting all these items for me, and I was like, why are these things so important? And then I learned about vendor recipes basically from having this loot filter where I was like, oh, this is a way to get chromatic orbs. Like you just go and salvage these things. And so that loot filter, which is a total external resource, was something that helped me understand the vendor recipe system in the game, which was super helpful. But if you managed to just figure all that stuff out on your own without any external shit, like that's props to you. You're smarter than me.
Well, I'll say this much. That is actually, there isn't much memory from my my gameplay from 12 years ago, but that is one thing that stuck. I remember I was like, oh wait, that's right. If you if you sell the different colored sockets that are linked, you get a chromatic orb instead of just whatever with a lesser currency was. I was like, oh, that's right. It's I remember there's like that spark of a memory still there, along with a few others, but again, not much.
Yeah, totally. I honestly had no idea what all that stuff was, and I was just like, SSF brained, picking everything up, selling everything. Obviously, currency is so much more valuable in SSF on PoE 1 because you're exchanging it, right? You're trading up your scrolls into like your orbs and all that kind of stuff. So I was doing that, and I was like, why is this vendor just giving me a bunch of random different stuff every time I sell shit? And I couldn't put two and two together that different items with different, sockets and all that kind of stuff attributed to a new like currency that they could give. But I really hope that falls into PoE 2 at some point. I think that that's super valuable. I know that gold has sort of more of a prevalence in PoE 2, but the concept of vendor recipes is something that I thought was really interesting, especially for a solo self-am player. What were your sort of thoughts on that? Did you have any sort of vendor recipes that maybe I don't know about that I was missing out on? Like, give me some info here.
Well, so hold on. When you say vendor recipes, because I might be in the dark here too, what vendor recipes did you stumble across? Because I might be unfamiliar with this because I did, other than the chromatic orb, that you consider that a vendor recipe? I'm not even familiar with this term, to be honest.
Okay. So maybe I'm more enlightened than you on this. So
yes, I think you might be.
Essentially, when you sell stuff to vendors, if you sell specific things, it gives you certain items. So the only other
Yeah.
one that I was interacting with on a regular basis was if you sell a 6 linked item, you get 7 jeweler's orbs, which are obviously just to add sockets or readjust the
Right.
sockets, right? And so again, playing on SSF, I had a really hard time. I mentioned this in a video, managing my sockets, managing my colors, but being able to salvage 6 links allowed me to take a stab at if I had a really good item with good mods but bad sockets, maybe see if I could slam it to get like 6 links and stuff like that. That's all I really know about. I'm sure there's a ton of other vendor recipes and stuff like that. Someone's mentioning in the chat that there's 3 flasks of the same quality. I saw this one as well, and I did use this. 3 flasks of the same quality. If you vendor those, it upgrades it to the next tier of flask. And the same thing with quality
Ah.
items. If you have 3 items with quality on them and you salvage them, it gives you armor scraps or blacksmithing things.
Interesting.
So
I see. I see.
you can use this now on your next play while you're playing.
Well, that's interesting. Like that's something again. That's like I don't know if they make that obvious. Like
They don't.
during the game, during the natural course of the game, right? Exactly. So that's another example of something that I'm sure we're going to talk about in a bit or later that you have to look up outside the game, right? So I was like, okay, I'm trying to go through without looking too much stuff up, but I'm slowly realizing that I'm going to have to look stuff up if I'm trying to be efficient, etc.
For sure. Yeah, it's interesting because there is a button that's like beside your skills that is like not like a glossary, but it's like a tutorial area where you can look up stuff. And vendor recipes is in there, but I didn't click
okay.
on that button for so long, dude. Like I didn't click on that button until I was like 20 hours into the game, and I was like, oh, there's like a tutorial where you can learn about all these things, and I didn't even look at that. So
Right. Right.
but yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to ask you, let's go over some of the positives of your campaign experience. So give
Sure.
me some stuff that really stood out to you. Could be systems, could be moments, could be bosses. What really stood out to you as stuff you really enjoyed throughout the campaign of PoE1?
Sure. So one thing that comes to mind that I think we differ on actually in opinion are the kind of introductions to end game systems throughout the campaign. Because for me, that felt nice to kind of mix it up a bit. Again, like I actually stopped and checked each one out because I was like, oh, this is different than just, zooming through a zone filled with mobs. There's like, they showed you pretty early on, they give you like a breach, they give you rituals, they give you, a little later on, like delirium mirrors. You get that goofy tower defense thing kind of in the middle, which I thought was hilarious. I actually really like that. I know like opinions are mixed apparently on that particular mechanic, but I actually like the tower defense thing. It was kind of funny. And yeah, just the delve stuff too in the mine section. So I liked that because it mixed it up for me, because I was getting to a point just where I wanted to zoom through, but every time I found one of those things that was a little different looking, I would check it out and be like, oh cool, and I would actually slow down again a little bit and try to figure out what's going on. And I actually like that part of the campaign, so going through that. But yeah, it does. I totally get where you're coming from, where you say like this kind of feels like it's kind of shoehorned in a little bit. It kind of distracts from whatever journey you are on, because it's just, hey, now you got to go cage some animals real quick. Hey, now you got to go like find some minerals for this like random miner. Now you like all this stuff. So I totally get that perspective too. Totally reasonable. And yeah, just there's some glimmers again of memories from like when I was playing back in the day. Again, I liked some of the story beats, like in Act 2. I remember this from, way back, just when you move the Evolve seal and everything goes dark. I remember that was like cool to experience again. I actually forgot about that until I did it again in Act 2. I was like, oh, that's right. That does happen. That's really cool. And I liked how the whole forest is dark. You had to go through that. And that was really cool. And yeah, I mean, I think overall, like, there are some fun story beats. I didn't follow the story as closely as I did in Path of Exile 2, but there are some cool beats again, like when towards the middle, when that's the statue comes to life that has Kitava in it. Essentially, you fight Kitava for the first time, and even the Kitava boss fight at the end, I actually really liked as well. So yeah, there are parts of the campaign that I did really enjoy. That I found that were fun.
Totally. I agree. Kitava was such a cool boss, especially being like a Smith of Kitava main on like PoE2. It was cool to go
Right.
back and be like, oh shit, this is the dude. This is the guy. You know what I mean? And that fight, I also covered like Malachi
This is who we're
as
working
well.
for.
Yeah, this is the boss. And now we're
Right.
killing the boss. But yeah, like I found that him, Malachi, there was a few boss experiences that I really did enjoy, but a lot of them just were like, that's it. Like the Act 1 boss, for example, you know, it's tough because in your mind you have, you know, PoE 2, which has the best boss fights of any ARPG like that I've ever
I
played.
agree. Yep. I agree.
You know, you go to fight Geonor for the first time. You're working your way through the manor. You go down. The music's hitting. He's telling you these crazy poems that he's been writing, and it just it just goes so damn hard. And then in contrast
Yeah.
to PoE 1, it's like these moments just they felt very underwhelming for me. And they still had the build up where I was playing through these acts, excited to get to these moments. But then when it came to the fight, it was either I was just face tanking it without ever considering mechanics, or whatever, or they were going invincible and not allowing me to kill them as quickly as I wanted
Oh
to,
man.
which is something you
Yes.
highlighted in your video too, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, just a real quick to touch upon that. Yeah, I felt exactly the same way. I felt like boss mechanics were a little undercooked, at least compared to Path of Exile 2. There wasn't anything, you know, just avoid some stuff essentially every now and then, but it wasn't. It was like pretty telegraphed and nothing. Yeah, it just felt like other than avoiding certain mechanics, it was mostly just like I'm hitting this boss and not taking that much damage. I don't know if this has to do with the builds that we rolled or whatever, but yeah, it felt like kind of basic, just a little bit more basic than Path of Exile 2 boss fights. And yes, dude, I cannot believe it. I think it was towards the end of the game when I realized this, but I looked back, I was like, oh, that dude, these bosses go invincible a lot and not for good reason. Like in Path of Exile 2, it's usually for like a phase transition or something like that, or like a mechanic where you have to really focus up or something like an Arbiter of Ash where you have to like really make sure you're not getting hit by, you know, flame hallways or like the flame seeds and stuff like that. When the bosses would go invincible in the campaign in Path of Exile 1, I noticed that they would go invincible for a move that really wasn't even that catastrophic. You know, sometimes I would tank the move that they went invincible for, and I was like, oh, that did like a quarter of my health. I'm good, you know. And I was like, all right, can we speed this up? Stop being invincible. You're not going to kill me. Let's get this moving. You know, that's kind of how it felt for a few of the boss fights. So yeah, totally agreed there.
Yes, 100%. All right, so we got essentially your highlights for the campaign were a lot of the league mechanics that have been added over the course of like the, you know, decade plus development cycle of Path of Exile 1. For me, as you mentioned and as I mentioned in my video, this actually was distracting from like the journey. And again, like this is something that I've basically went into expecting, you know, to have some sort of like narrative experience. But to be frank with you, like I was not engaged with the story. I basically lost interest in like listening to the, you know, dialogue from the NPCs and stuff like that. And I ended up trying to just get through this campaign as quickly as possible and almost avoided more and more of these league mechanics as they popped up so that I could get to the fabled end game where the game actually like opens up basically. So that was my take on it, but I can definitely see your perspective too. Like it broke up the very like repetitive nature. It felt like in the campaign in PoE 1, there was always a blocked entrance to some new area and you had to go somewhere else to unblock the entrance. And that was like a reoccurring thing that happened in the game like 5 times or something like that. And I was like, really guys, like another blocked door that we have to go and unlock? Like I think that might happen in like PoE 1, like or PoE 2, like once maybe. So please, GGG, don't do more block doors in the rest of the acts because that is just played out for sure.
They'll just backload them. There's just gonna be like 3 in each in act like, you know, 4 onward.
For sure. All right, so I'd like to rapid fire through some quick PoE 1, PoE 2
Sure.
essentially some differences here. So first one, click to move versus WASD. Where do you stand on that? How did you feel about the movement in PoE 1?
Oh, come on, man. Yeah, WASD is just so much better. It just, you know, I readjusted back to Path of Exile 2's point to click, but you know, I just WASD feels so good. It feels so much better in Path of Exile 2. And I remember I was actually initially doing point to click in Path of Exile 2 before switching to WASD, but then people were telling me, man, you got to try WASD. It's like so much better. So I switched to it and I was like, oh my God, I don't think I'll ever go back. It feels just that much better. And on top of that, I've actually, you know, I was screwed over a few times in Path of Exile 1, even to this day, as I'm using point to click, because sometimes I just want to relocate my character real quick on a cluttered screen just to get into a better position for like another, you know, shield crush or something like that. And I'll accidentally like click on a mob and then my character goes to attack the mob rather than going to the position that I want to. And I'm just like, oh, I wish I could just aim one direction with the mouse and move with the keyboard. Like it feels like it's intended in PoE 2. So definitely way bigger of a fan of WASD movement. Yeah, it's too good.
I hear you, man. Like It took me a little bit to get used to it, and I didn't mind the PoE one click to move because, of course, Diablo 2 and all the other ARPGs use that
Yep.
same movement style. But you're absolutely right. Like having WASD allows for almost more precision in moving your character because you're not constantly like avoiding things to click on, which is something that I didn't even really
Mhm.
know that I
Yep.
was doing. Like, and especially with all the loot
Right.
on the ground and all the mobs everywhere, it's like you really feel like you have more control with WASD. I also like, the dodge roll. Like, were you pressing spacebar constantly? Like when you got in, like what was that like?
Yes, I totally was. I was like hitting it. I was like, oh man, that's right. I'm playing Path of Exile 1. I hit it so many times. Even doing endgame stuff, I'll still occasionally hit it. I'm like, oh god, what am I doing?
Dude,
Which is weird. Which is
yeah,
weird, right?
100%.
Because it's not something I expect as integral to an action RPG, but they put it in Path of Exile 2, and people are kind of like mixed reception on it in Path of Exile 2. But I think overall, I miss it. Like it's cool to have that option where you like again you front load a bunch of speed and then you slow down towards the tail end of the roll. But it does help you narrowly avoid things. I think it's a honestly looking back on it now, looking at Path of Exile 2, I'm like, man, I really missed that. It's actually more useful than I initially imagined.
It feels so good. I love the way that they did it in
Yeah.
Path of Exile 2, where like, the new player onboarding experience, it's very similar where you're on a beach and you wake up and there's skill gems and there's items and you fight a boss. But the way that they handled it in PoE 2, I love how they introduced the Miller and he has that, the big slam ability and you have to dodge that and it forces you
Yep.
to dodge there. And going from that to basically like just face tanking, I can't Hillock and guys, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
I died to Hillock. I'm a bad gamer. My hardcore run was over on the beach. But yeah, like going to fight Hillock and not being able to maneuver around him as I did in the fighting the bloated Miller was definitely a distinct difference that I didn't enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, dude, to be honest, I almost died to him too, just because it feels off. There's very little else you can do other than face tank him that early on, and yet yeah, you have to point and click to maybe avoid some attacks, but it feels more awkward, especially since both of us were fresh coming off of Path of Exile 2. It's we wouldn't. I did not think to do that at first to like click around him and try to avoid some of the attacks, but yeah, I remember getting hit. I was like, oh, this guy's actually going to kill me unless I do something. So I was like, okay, let me just move around for a little bit. So
For
yeah,
sure.
totally understand.
For sure. So I ended up incorporating some movement skills into my build, and this is something that I wanted to talk to you about as well. So Path of Exile 1 has some wonderful movement abilities that you can use. One of the ones that I was using throughout the campaign was Leap Slam. You get that quite early on, and it really showcases, how different the movement abilities are in Path of Exile 1 versus Path of Exile 2. Like, because of the cooldown or lack of cooldowns that exist in PoE 1. So, you get shield charge pretty early on, and then you get leap slam, and combined with both of those, you can basically just zoom around the map while using your Quicksilver Flask. And then later on, you get access to the blink abilities. So I ended up using the Fire Blink spell in conjunction with Leap Slam. What was your experience with any movement abilities? Did you get to try out Leap Slam, Blink? Where do you stand with those?
Yeah, so now I'm curious about this Fire Blink. I actually didn't know that was in the game, so I might have to check that out. But yeah, I mean, overall movement in Path of Exile 1 felt it's obviously faster than Path of Exile 2. And initially I was like, oh man, why didn't they bring the Quicksilver Flask in the Path of Exile 2? It feels so good in Path of Exile 1. But I feel like they designed the campaign accounting for a Quicksilver Flask in Path of Exile 1, because again, there's just so many zones I just wanted to use it through. And I heard that they did have a build of Path of Exile 2's campaign with the Quicksilver Flask as well. But I mean, overall, like I kind of see that I could be wrong here, but I feel like the devs might be intentionally slowing down Path of Exile 2. And it feels fine to me. Like I remember not thinking maybe they should bring it back, but after playing through, I don't know. I think Path of Exile 2 is just trying to go for something different, and I'm just want to really quickly acknowledge I think I'm cool with like the slower like pace of Path of Exile 2. But as far as like the abilities go in Path of Exile 1, Shield Charge was the ability that I obviously was using a bunch, and it was interesting to see that it had no cooldown. Obviously not quite the same as it is in Path of Exile 2. In Path of Exile 2, It's like a huge heavy hitting nuke now, and you can do it at point blank range. You just do a ton of damage. Path of Exile 1, the damage only is good if you're able to hit at like the maximum range of the shield charge, from what I understand. So quite different and mostly a mobility thing for me. I mean, I basically use it to go between packs, from pack to pack during a fight. But also if Quicksilver is like, if I'm out of Quicksilver charges or something, I will just definitely like dash towards like the edge of the screen or something like that. So yeah, I mean, I think the movement overall and the skills, the movement skills in Path of Exile 1 is a lot faster in Path of Exile 2. But when I play Path of Exile 2, I'll just say that I don't miss it, I don't think, anymore. Initially, I was like, maybe they should bring the Quicksilver Flask in, but I'm actually kind of okay somehow with with the slower movement in Path of Exile 2. I don't know why that came to mind as I was playing through Path of Exile 1, but yeah, I guess it's a way to differentiate it. And I don't think, I mean, I'll ask you, do you miss like the fast movement in Path of Exile 1 in Path of Exile 2? Or, how do you feel about that?
So what I think about that is that you obtain a level of movement with your abilities, with the Quicksilver Flask, and with your character at a very rapid pace in Path of Exile 1. You get to that same pace, roughly speaking, maybe not quite as crazy, but from what my experience, you get to that pace at a very much later time in Path of Exile 2. It's very much a slow grind. You really feel those 10% MS, those 20% MS, those 30% MS upgrades. And then when you start getting, movement abilities that you can use as well, like, leap slam, shield charge, all these different types of things, that sort of stuff adds to a better sense of progression in terms of your speed over time in Path of Exile 2. In Path of Exile 1, it feels like you reach that like heightened level of, I mean, of course, when you get blink, it's like even better, but you reach that level of speed super quickly. And it was like, that doesn't stop throughout the rest of the game. Basically, you get like in Act 1, you're basically zooming. That was kind of my general thought.
Yeah. Basically, as soon as you hit the mud flats or whatever, you get that first Quicksilver, I think, and you're able to just zoom from there. As I forgot to mention this as a positive for Path of Exile 1, which is related to this. I really do like that in that first safe zone, that first town. You can buy so many different skill gems from that first vendor, and it felt like your gameplay could open up quicker in Path of Exile 1 compared to Path of Exile 2. That's something I actually really liked in Path of Exile 1. I was like, oh, there are like all these different options and avenues you can pursue in this game earlier on. In Path of Exile 2, it feels like it takes a little bit longer for you to get like that kind of decision to go, those different options presented before you. So yeah, that's something I really liked in Path of Exile 1. And it might have to do with like the lack of weapon types in Path of Exile 2. I don't know yet. We'll have to see. But yeah, it just felt really good in Path of Exile 1, being presented with so many different ways to go about, movement and damage early on.
Totally agree. I love the skill gem vendor in PoE 1. We'll get into that very, very shortly. There's one thing I wanted to add about the movement speed, and it basically just to highlight sort of something that you talked about, where it sort of sounds like it made you playing PoE 1 and appreciating, what they did on that side of things. It made you appreciate kind of the way that they're going about it in PoE 2, which I can definitely agree with. I think that now having the understanding of how things are happening in both games, I can really see what they're trying to do with Path of Exile 2 in terms of a lot of different things, but especially the slower, like everything is just so much more slowed down. And it made me actually like love that part of the game even more, because I was like, oh, this is such a defining part of the way that this game is designed, and something that, Path of Exile 1 is designed in a completely different way where you're zooming right away. So it's kind of cool to hear you say like, oh, playing this game kind of helped me appreciate like PoE 2 more, which is also kind of how I feel about it as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's like the pace I actually appreciate, because I think they, I don't know if this is true. This is pure theory, but it feels like they, there aren't as many zones in Path of Exile 2, almost to account for the lack of Quicksilver Flasks. And so it makes it feel, if there were the same amount of zones in Path of Exile 1, the acts in Path of Exile 1 and Path of Exile 2's acts, I'd be going crazy every time I have to play through, because that would make it feel like a slog with no Quicksilver and going through that many zones. But there are substantially less zones. So honestly, the pacing, and I don't know, this could be pure familiarity of Path of Exile 2 at this point, but the pacing feels good to me. I don't feel like I'm super slow or anything at all, even after playing Path of Exile 1.
Totally. And we will see how it feels when there's 6 acts. Right now, obviously, like you have to go through
Yep.
the first 3 twice. So there is technically 6 in total. But even comparatively speaking to the 10 that we have in Path of Exile 1, yeah, the pacing it's just a bit weird. It definitely did not feel as good. So we touched upon right before we sort of had these last few points about movement speed, about skill gems. So I would love to get into that right now. Obviously, there's a huge shift between the way that they handle skill gems and sockets in PoE 1 versus PoE 2. Give me sort of your breakdown with your experience. How did you feel about socketed items and skill gems versus your experience with the way that they approach it in PoE 2?
Oh, that's a really good question. So it's obviously really different. The way I describe it in like Path of Exile 2, it feels like a little simpler, but more like streamlined is how I describe it. Because obviously, like each skill gem in Path of Exile 2 has its own like little row, in your skills panel, and then you just put whatever supports you want, up to 5 or whatever in each skill. It's like very simple and straightforward, and you can't repeat support gems. Path of Exile 1, it feels a little weird to me to have your skills, and I remember this from 12 years ago too, thinking the same thing, that your skills have to be socketed into your armor, which is like kind of weird to me that you socket your skills into your gear. But at this point, it's fine. That's like the system that everybody's gotten used to. And I do like, on the positive side of that, I do like that you can come up with some creative combinations, like with certain sockets, where you can have like one support count for 2 abilities or something. Like even right now on my character, I have a it's like a war cry support gem that makes your war cries go faster. I think it's called Urgent Orders. But yeah, that support gem is currently supporting Infernal War Cry or Infernal Cry and Enduring Cry for one support gem. So I do like that option, that you can kind of creatively put together a support gem that'll support, 2, 3, I don't know what the limits are as far as the socket system goes. But that I do like. But overall, it felt kind of limiting at the same time, because if you don't find the right gear with the right sockets, or you have to like either craft it, or you have to do all this stuff just to have your supports and your main ability be relevant again, or to be active again. Because like if you find a really good upgrade stat wise but the sockets are crap, it's like, okay, well now I gotta work on this a little bit. It just felt a little clunky to me. It didn't feel like impossible, but it felt like a little bit kind of, I don't know, like extra, like a little bit of a blocker to me is all.
Totally. Yeah, it felt weird having itemization influence the way that I was interacting with my character in terms of skills. I really like the difference, like having it be differentiated. The way that they do it in Path of Exile 2, I think is so much better for so many reasons. The main reason is because in PoE 1, you feel like your gear, the sockets, especially early on, matter so much because you're basically relying on all that stuff to use your abilities. And it made it feel like the modifiers, which were making me do more damage or be more tanky or have more resistances, kind of came as a secondary thought to essentially how the gear was socketed and how the links were and the colors were. And so going back to PoE 2, it just makes me realize like why they iterated on this, because especially for SSF and for new players, it allows for a lot more flexibility with like swapping things out. Although I do think that Path of Exile 2 really should implement some sort of way to buy skill gems. I loved having that option in PoE 1. I loved seeing once you beat, the first part of the game, going back to Lion Eye's Watch and seeing that vendor with like the pages and pages of red, green, and blue skill gems. I think that's a wonderful thing. So I think that doing that in their own way in Path of Exile 2 will just make the game better, dude. Like I was talking about this with Miso, where even if you find a level 20 skill gem and being able to cut that to any level of skill gem up to 20 would be something great. Or, the same way that like support gems work, where you have a level 3 support gem, it unlocks all of the previous tiers of support gems too. So that is something that I would love to see. But overall, yeah, for sure, man. I feel you. The PoE 2 system for me was just so much better.
Yeah. I mean, support gems, a level 3 support gem in Path of Exile 2, I think you can use it for like tier 1, tier 2 stuff. But I know what you mean. Like I wonder if like, yeah, I mean, the skill gem thing you suggested is honestly genius, and they should implement that. That's great. But I guess like it would both be something like that, but also just finding more, just a little bit more, finding more skill gems as in the earlier moments of Path of Exile 2 would again kind of create that same satisfying feeling of opening up faster, being able to like try different things out earlier in that way. So yeah, I honestly totally agree. That's a great idea.
Absolutely. So let's talk about items. I think that this is a perfect segue into the itemization of the game. They're very similar, but very different for some factors. We just talked about sort of the socket system, the colors, the links being very much tied to your character's abilities. How did you feel about the items? Maybe you can speak to some of the uniques that you found throughout your playthrough or that you traded for versus how you feel about items in Path of Exile 2.
Oh man, yeah, that's a tough question. I feel like so this is interesting because the whole mercenaries mechanic can present you with quite a few uniques early on. I feel like, and that can perhaps vary in making your like campaign slightly easier or way easier, I guess, depending on the uniques that you find. But I remember it was cool because I found what was it, a mercenary as early as the prison in Act 1, and he had just this one-handed axe that increased my movement speed, and I was like, oh man, I'm clearly going to use that because they'll help me like move faster. I love movement speed, and it did decent damage. So it was cool seeing like the uniques early on. They just seem like they, well, at least with the mercenaries mechanic, that you find them a little more often than in Path of Exile 2. And yeah, as far as later on, I did trade a little bit. I did trade for a really nice shield. There are a lot of uniques, and I feel like this is also related to like looking a bunch of stuff up to understand Path of Exile 1 better. I feel like there are a lot of uniques, and I'm not sure like what is optimal. That's where I start like wanting to look at guides and wanting to look at what other people are using. Go like, there's a lot, there's a lot of uniques, and some of them feel. Well, I'll say this. I think more of the uniques I found felt more useful or like relevant to not necessarily my build, but perhaps to other builds than a lot of the uniques in Path of Exile 2. I feel like Path of Exile 2 is kind of leaning too heavily on like the leveling uniques, what I mean? And a lot of the uniques in Path of Exile 2 have some pretty major drawbacks that make me not want to use them. And Path of Exile 1 overall, I think on average, I found a lot of uniques that I was like, oh, I would consider using this on a different class or something like that. I could see the stats and I could see like the abilities it granted you and the stuff that improved. I was like, this actually seems like it could be good, if not necessarily for my character, somebody else.
100%, dude. I feel you. I feel like, I don't know if you had this experience, but as I was playing through the Path of Exile 1 campaign, I was dropping uniques that were like my level, basically, like closer to my level. And so they were actually like direct contenders as like upgrades. Whereas in PoE 2, for me, it feels like you're getting any unique that's in the loot pool up to your level. So sometimes you're finding uniques on the ground that are like level like 10 or something when you're level 40, and you're like,
Yeah.
thanks guys, like this is not usable anymore. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like,
yeah.
so in PoE 1, for example, I found these gloves that I highlighted in my video called Worm Sign. And I didn't find a shit ton of uniques, but I found some cool ones. And these gloves actually were like a insta upgrade. So it was like they improved my endurance charges by basically granting 4% reduced mana per endurance charge. So I was running a 6 endurance charge build, so I was reducing my movements or my mana usage by like over 20%. So I had to like take away some of the tree that I had invested in, because I invested in some mana cost reduction. And then it gave me also this really cool mechanic called Rampage, which is not even in PoE 2, which I also would love
Mhm.
to have brought in. So it turned clearing areas into like a mini game where basically what Rampage is as you're killing stuff, there's a counter that appears in your screen after you get to like 15 kills. And the more that counter goes up, the more damage and movement speed you get. So every 20 kills grants you 1% movement speed and 1% damage. So every time I was going into a new map, I was like, kill, 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 just zooming around, boosting up to like the 500 Rampage meter. And then I would go around and loot everything else afterwards. And it felt like a really cool like mini game basically that I was playing with my character. And I haven't really got a lot of those items that I've found in PoE 2 yet. And I know that they'll be implemented over time. I would love to see the Rampage mechanic introduced because I think it's a super cool one. But it's cool to hear that you also have had some like interesting experiences with unique items in PoE 1.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so real quick, as a question for you, is there a limit on the Rampage stacks that you can get, or if you're just killing fast enough, you'll just keep getting them?
I don't know if there's a limit. I think the highest I was ever able to get to was like 500 plus, but it's cool. The more Rampage that you have, the more effects happen too. So you're like exploding shit, and there's like stuff flying off of your character. And I was like, yo, these gloves are super cool. And then basically you lose all of your endurance charges when your Rampage ends. But because I was spec'd into endurance charges so hard, I was generating them so quickly from just killing stuff that I would just basically have like Rampage all the time. And And then also everything that you have in that's socketed into the gloves gives you level 5 concentrated effect. So you're doing more damage but having less AoE. So it was cool to kind of put stuff in there that was, stuff that I wanted to boost up damage with, but I wasn't concerned with AoE abilities, basically. Just a super cool
Interesting.
item. One thing that really stood out to me through my playthrough was these gloves. And it's like what you said, there's probably a plethora of various unique items in the game that I never got to find, but that can really allow for interesting stuff to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Last thing I'll say on that is I think yeah, I even during my playthrough, I feel like this must be, to compare Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile 1, and you can tell me what you feel because you actually played through as a solo self-found character in Path of Exile 1, but I feel like you are probably getting more excited in Path of Exile 1 when you see a unique drop than you are in Path of Exile 2 as a solo self-found character. Just because on average there's a bigger chance of it being like an actually good slash useful item. I remember even as I was going through, aside from that axe I found in the mercenary, I found a really good necklace, and I had just spec'd into chieftain, which is basically Smith of Katava. Well, at least one branch of that ascendancy is like Smith of Katava, where like your fire resistance applies 50% to all your resistances. Shortly after getting that ascendancy, I found a unique necklace that gave me 40% fire resistance and a bunch of movement speed and like all this really good stuff as long as I was like at full health. And I was like, it was like an auto equip. I was like, oh, that's clearly an upgrade to whatever I'm using. I didn't have to look at my old necklace because like this is just clearly better at this point.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, dude, that's what I mean. Like the itemization, the way that they did the items in PoE 1, it actually felt really, really good. If you don't take into consideration the sockets and the links and the colors, like if you just look at the items and the way that they are designed, like some of the unique items are fascinating. They're really, really cool. And you're absolutely right. For me, it felt very exciting to see that golden text and that sound, that dopamine hitting sound of a unique on the ground, and looking and seeing like, yo, is this like my next upgrade? Like, because a lot of them felt really good. Like they felt really good in contrast to what I was using.
Yeah, for sure. I for sure, like on average, again, I feel like there's a higher chance of finding a unique that's actually going to be really good for you, even while leveling through the campaign, than in Path of Exile 2.
Totally. Like another one that was pretty memorable for me, that I used for quite a while was a ring. I don't remember what it's called, but essentially it was a crit ring. So it was like I think it's like a diamond ring, maybe. I can't remember what the base is, but it improves crit chance. And then it gave me consecrated ground every time I did a crit. So finding this ring, I spec'd into, crit a bit more so I could have that consecrated ground. And this thing literally allowed me to face tank so much shit because I was just critting, standing on consecrated ground. I was getting that crazy healing over time. And then I was doing more damage because I was critting basically a lot more as well. So super cool ring to find throughout my campaign playthrough. And yeah, just loved the unique items that I found in PoE 1.
Yeah. Again, I feel like we're talking about this a lot, but there's another thing I want to mention too that you just brought up is that necklace I found was good enough to make me want to shift some passive skill points around. I don't think I have done that in Path of Exile 2, where I'd like find a unique and I want to respec like while leveling. But in Path of Exile 1, that necklace, it was really good, but would only give you its bonuses if you're at full health. And I happened to be blood magic at the time, so like, whoa, I got to get rid of blood magic because this necklace is just too good. So I spec'd out of blood magic and just redistributed my points a bit just so that the necklace would be like more relevant to me. I really like the uniques. I'm not sure how, I'm sure there's so many in Path of Exile 1, but I really liked all the ones I found. So yeah, just a good experience overall.
Totally. It almost reminded me more of the way that itemization existed, especially with regards to uniques in Diablo 2, because that very same like decision-making process that you just described, where you're like, you find an item and you're like, oh, like, how can I build my character around this to utilize the benefits of this item? That was something that I really enjoyed having experienced again in PoE 1. And you're absolutely right. Like finding stuff like that in PoE 2, it just feels so hit or miss a lot of the times. You're very rarely finding a unique item on the ground that you're like, oh, like this is amazing. I just need to like swap a few things around to basically make it way better for my character. Yeah.
In Path of Exile 2, it's almost like a defense mechanism. You see a unique drop and you just feel bummed immediately, just in case it happens to be good. You're just like, this is probably just some trash,
100%, bro. 100%. All right, so moving on, let's talk about Ascension. So this is something that you didn't mention in your video that I wanted to talk to you about. Clearly, Path of Exile 2 and Path of Exile 1 handle Ascension very differently. Give me your general perspective on how you felt about Ascension in PoE 1, and maybe contrast it with a bit of how you feel about PoE 2's Trials of Sekimas and Trial of Chaos.
Yeah, sure. It's funny because I remember you mentioned that in the video when you watched my video, and I was like, I mentioned even to you, I was like, yeah, I recorded, and I realized I totally forgot that I just did not go over that. But I kind of feel like it represents my feelings in a way, forgetting to even go over it, because I do. There's a part of the labyrinth that I really like, but also a part that I really don't like. It's a pretty neutral overall feeling for me because the part of the labyrinth I do like is like the labyrinth itself. It didn't feel like weird to speed through it because there are all these traps and stuff. So you were kind of encouraged to like be quick about it, in certain areas of the dungeon. There's actually some really good loot in the labyrinth which I really liked, like the silver caches and stuff like that. I was like, oh my God, I remember the first one I found, I was like, yeah, let's just see what this is about. I want to just figure it out. Found the key, went back to it. I opened it, I was like, oh, whoa. I was like, there's a lot of stuff in this one, like a lot of good stuff. I think that actually may have been where that necklace came from because you can get like all sorts of really good items, uniques, etc. So that was cool knowing that the loot in the labyrinth was actually really good. The part I didn't like, I think you actually mentioned this in your video too, is the boss. I didn't really care for the boss. Like it was not very interesting to me. It was kind of felt like basically a face tanky boss. And then you fight the same one over and over again. It feels so bad when you're like doing so much damage. You're like, oh my God, I'm just destroying this guy. And then he just goes invincible and turns around. He's like, I'm going to take this elevator. Bye. That doesn't feel good to me. I was like, really? I was like, what's going on here? Is that it? At first time with you, I was like, wait, why did he do that? I was so confused. And then the door opens, like, oh, I guess I go on. And then I went on, and then I figured out, oh, you just have to fight the same dude over and over. I'm like, okay, that's a little lame to me. And the boss fight itself wasn't even like super interesting. So, it was fine. I like the voice lines of the boss, but I mean, the boss fight itself, mechanically, I just didn't think was all that, refined.
Dude, I totally agree. Like Izaro, the voice lines are so cool. Like he's probably my favorite boss in terms of vibes. Like he just had like the coolest things that he would say, and that was about it for him in terms of things I did like about him. I really disliked how even going through and doing the second ascension and the third ascension, it was like the same boss, but they just like reformatted the arena to have more traps. I was like, guys, really? Like you couldn't like give him another phase or something, or like change his like mechanics up a little bit? Like, I don't know. I just felt like the ascension in PoE 2, which I initially didn't love, but I've fallen in love with it over time. It's just so much more engaging. Like I love going through the Trials of Sekimas and fighting the different bosses and having the floors, the aesthetics change a little bit, and the monsters are a little bit different in there. And then having the bosses obviously clearly are different until you get to like, the temporal dude at the very end, who is like arguably one of the coolest underrated bosses in PoE 2. Like, yes, he has the one-shot mechanic where he'll like kill you if you don't hit the hourglasses in time, but like generally speaking, it was like such an interesting and cool boss to be able to obtain your final form, basically. And I never got to PoE 2 or PoE 1's final form. I never got my fourth ascendancy. I know, guys, I'm sorry, I capped out at 3. I don't do you plan on getting your fourth ascendancy in PoE 1? Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I actually did. I think yesterday, I think I got it. And it's interesting because you've gone through the 3 times. You've gone through it 3 times to get your 6 ascendancy points. And I can't remember if the boss was still using a sword and shield at that time. There is one difference between the boss, I think, between the third ascendancy and the fourth one, where he's just dual wielding in the fourth one. But honestly, it's still not that different. Like I remember seeing it, I was like, oh, there's a little bit of a change. And then the fight just felt the same. I was like, oh, okay. So it was fine. Again, the fourth ascendancy, not that much different than the third. I would say compared to Path of Exile 2, I also prefer Path of Exile 2's ascendancy stuff because one, you're presented with 2 options to ascend, really. So obviously you have to go through the Trial of Sekimas for your first 2, and then the Chaos Trials for the second 2. But then you can pursue Trial or the Trial of Sekimas or Chaos Trial to get your third and fourth ascendancies, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's cool that you can choose between the 2. I like having multiple options. And in Trial of Sekimas, I like the progression there. I mean, it's not just the same boss over and over. You fight, the Earth Shatter guy first, then you fight the 2 golems after that, and then you fight the Scorpion after that, and you fight the Zarok, which I love that. Those are all really cool bosses, in my opinion. Really good designs. And yeah, you mentioned the one-shot mechanic on Zarok, and that is an example of a boss going invulnerable for an interesting mechanic. Again, that's like, hey, if you don't do this well enough, you're dead, and you have to like really focus up and like move and collect the right things in a certain amount of time, and that is engaging to me. I like that. There are certain, when bosses in Path of Exile 1, when they would go invulnerable, on average, I wasn't very engaged. I was sitting there waiting for them to go to become vulnerable again, so I could start hitting them again. So I do think I like the Path of Exile 2 trials a lot more. I know at first they were kind of rough because you would lose honor so easily in the Trial of Succubus. And I'm glad they fixed that. They fixed that pretty quickly. So yeah, I gotta say, I just like the Ascendancy stuff in Path of Exile 2. I much prefer. I actually really like it now. And the Path of Exile 1 Ascendancy stuff, I'm kind of just overall neutral on. I was like, it's fine. I got through it. I like the looting, and I like the trials themselves, the dungeon aspect of it, but I did not care for the boss very much.
Yeah, man, we're on the same page. Like, it feels like in PoE 2, and I apologize, I didn't get to the 4th Ascendancy in PoE 1, so I can't speak to this fully, but it felt like from my experience, like you really had to work for that 4th Ascendancy. Like, I struggled so hard, and I thought this was back in point 1 when I was a complete noob and I had no idea what I was doing, but I thought the only way to get the 4th Ascendancy was to beat the Trial Master. So I was going through, I was getting my pieces of my key, and they didn't show you which piece you were going to get back then, so you had to go and randomly get the final boss that you needed and then go fight him, and I died a bunch fighting him, and then I would have to go back and do it, and I was like, man, these guys really want me to work for these last 2 points. But when I got there, dude, I was like, oh my God, like I worked so hard to get here, and it felt like earned. Like I was like, damn. And I loved the Trial Master. I loved like all, having him be the final boss of the Trial of Chaos, where you're interacting with him as he's like taunting you through the whole process of it. It just felt really cool. Like felt like a really cool and engaging experience. And yeah, I just totally didn't experience that playing through PoE 1. It felt like these trials and these ascension points up to the first like 6 points were basically just free. Like it was just like, once you do the campaign and you get through these zones, here you go. Here's some points. And I know that it requires sort of a thing that you have to get to unlock the 4th one. But if you're saying it's basically the same boss in the same format again, it's like, guys, like what's going on here,
Yeah, there's really not that much of a difference. It honestly, yeah, the way you put it is the way I felt. The way you put it highlights the way I kind of felt, where it's just like I got excited in Path of Exile 2, going through and like feeling like I'm going through and fighting these really tough bosses for the first time and failing a few times too. I mean, that's fair as long as it's not like feels like too much of a roadblock. But I mess up, or I didn't progress through the Trial of Sechamus in a very good way. I chose like some stupid, like some like not so good boons or some stupid curses or something, and it's kind of my fault. So it's like engaging again. It's like engaging to me to go through, and it's like exciting to like overcome some really tough challenges, and finally ascend for that like 3rd or 4th time. So yeah, I really like that, the feeling of that in Path of Exile 2. And I'll tell you, like the 4th Ascendancy in Path of Exile 1, yeah, man, like you run some maps for a bit until you find the item that you need. I think you have to run like a mini, like, Ascendancy trial with traps and stuff like that in the map before you get the item. But you use that item to run the 4th trial, and it feels the same. It just feels like, for me, not exciting. It just feels like something I have to do / get through, That's just how it kind of felt to me off the cuff.
100%. So Diablo Mix is in the chat, and he's saying the Labyrinth and Azaro mechanics change daily. There's an entire website dedicated on the Labyrinth. That is super cool. I did not realize that the Labyrinth and the mechanics of the boss actually change on a regular basis. I must have done my campaign, or I did my ascendancies on various different days. So I don't think that I experienced any differences that I can recall throughout my experiences doing the ascendancies in the Labyrinth for the first 3 times. But if that's the case, that's super interesting. And I love that, like, depending on the day, you could be experiencing it in a different format. That just wasn't personally like the way that I experienced it.
Yeah.
All right. So
that's crazy. I didn't detect any differences either, by the way. So maybe we're not paying enough attention, but it felt like the same to me.
Yeah, 100%. So, okay, big topic here that I want to talk to you about. Let's talk about rafting. Let's talk about the bench. Let's talk about your experiences with it. what did you engage with in terms of crafting so far in Path of Exile 1, and how does it compare to the slot machine? I mean, crafting in Path of Exile 2.
The gambling, yes, yes. It's yeah, it's better. Like I remember seeing comments across like so many different videos I've watched about Path of Exile 2 about people mentioning how bad the crafting is in Path of Exile 2, how bad it is, and I was like, it is very RNG and it doesn't feel great, but you know, it's the only crafting I knew in a Path of Exile, so I was like, it's serviceable, but I totally get that it doesn't feel amazing, you know, because it is so dice rolly. And then after playing Path of Exile 1, and just immediately you run when you get that crafting bench, I was like, oh, I get it. You know, first as soon as I like was browsing through and figuring out how it works, I'm like, oh, you can just choose something that you want to make this item better. You know, that actually feels like crafting. It felt like so much better. And I mean, the way I was using it essentially was just to fill in. You know, I think you mentioned this in your video, just to fill in gaps with like elemental resists or something like that, or just like a stat that I needed, or just throw on some extra life. It's cool that you can just choose things like that. I really appreciate it. You know, you just use your currency to just, you know, make an item the way you want it to be, you know, make it a little better the way you want it to be better, rather than, again, just like hoping something nice will happen to your item in Path of Exile 2.
100%, man. Yeah, I found that like because I mean, I have a mixed opinion about crafting. I think on the one hand, the stuff that I engaged with was obviously like leaps and bounds better in Path of Exile 1 than Path of Exile 2. But the on the other hand, there was so much stuff that it got really, really overwhelming for me. And I think that's like general, common opinion about how new players experience crafting in Path of Exile 1. And it felt like for me, the general crafting bench, it should be in every town hub. It shouldn't just be something that you have accessible via your hideout, because I would have started using that so much earlier in the campaign, but I didn't realize that I had to like go into the hideout and like slap that thing down and like start using it. And then, but when I started doing that, I was like, oh my God, I've been like missing out on like all of these extra modifiers because exalted orbs just aren't like a thing that you find really in the campaign. And so basically like I wasn't really struggling either way, but it was cool that I could like further tailor my character with that crafting bench. And that's not even talking about the currencies. Like, dude, essences in PoE 1 are so freaking good. Like every time I saw a monster trapped in essence, I was like, oh boy, like there's a new item I can make right there with like a new rare item with 4 mods. And in contrast in PoE 2, it's like essences are just like glorified augment and transmute orbs where you're just adding like a,
Basically.
a specific like variant of a modifier, right? And so seeing the way that like, even the bare minimum of stuff that you can do in PoE 1, it's crazy, bro. Like all of the various currency orbs that you can use to craft, all of the crafting mechanics in terms of benches. Like, did you end up like dipping your toes into like harvest crafting or beast crafting or anything like that?
Not yet, not yet. I do have a bunch of essences saved up. I remember reading the descriptions of them being like, oh, these seem like they could be useful at some point. So I still have a bunch saved up, but I'm waiting till I find an item that I really want to try, like, crafting up in that way. Here's my question to you, though. Do you think just straight up one for one, they should move some of those crafting systems from Path of Exile 1 to Path of Exile 2?
That's a great question. So my first instinct is to say that I like that GGG is trying to differentiate Path of Exile 2 from Path of Exile 1 in a bunch of different ways. I don't necessarily think that the crafting system is it right now in PoE 2, but seeing the way that they've sort of progressed the socket system with more ways to influence gear is a good first step. What I would like to see get implemented over from PoE 1 is the way that certain crafting stuff influences your gear, like essences. I think essences need a full rework. I think they need to be way better because in PoE 1 they're just so strong, and there's a lot of things like that in PoE 1 that I would love to see sort of maybe adapted, but different in PoE 2. I don't think that they'll ever bring over the crafting bench, but I think over time we'll see a lot of ways that like sockets and things like that and socketables will be able to basically solve your whatever it is your issue is with your gear if you're trying to fill in a gap in resistance and stuff. I mean, we have that, it's just not nearly as good as PoE 1 is. Yeah, but I don't know if I want that. Like I want PoE 2 to be different, and I know that they kind of are doubling down on the way that they're handling crafting in PoE 2. I just think that it needs like a lot more time in the oven until it's like even necessarily comparable to like PoE 1.
Yeah. I feel like with the kind of the approach, and you can tell me if you agree with this. I think the approach they're taking in Path of Exile 2 is to like have it be RNG when you're using exalted orbs or you're using certain items to make to in quotes craft things, but to introduce items and methods and ways to narrow that RNG so that you are kind of rolling a select few like things that you want to see on an item, of a whatever tier or whatever, whatever you're looking for, like an attribute roll or something. I think that might be what they're trying to do, but yeah, it's got some work. I'll say that much. It's got some work currently.
For sure. And all the foundations are there. It's just a matter of them implementing more stuff. So I was talking with Scrimps yesterday. Guys, for anyone who's listening live, that episode will be available for full listen tomorrow. But we were talking about basically the ability to resistance swap in PoE 1 and how that could really be a beneficial thing to have in PoE 2. Like, for example, if they brought over an orb of the elements and that was just like an orb, a currency orb that you used on an item, and that would randomly re-roll the resistance element basically from like cold to lightning to fire. It still has that RNG thing that they're really holding on to in PoE 1, but it still allows you to kind of alter and fill in those gaps with your gear in a meaningful way. And I really think that, taking some of that stuff that exists in PoE 1, bringing it into PoE 2 in its own way would just be great. And I think that like I'm pretty confident they will do that over time. But right now, yeah, obviously like there are some things that are definitely lacking for sure.
Yeah, agreed. That's a cool idea, honestly. And yeah, I mean, I can't tell you, it just feels bad when you use like, or I feel like lukewarm when I use an essence in Path of Exile 2. It's like there's just so many roles that you don't want to see. I feel like I can't tell you how many times I've like used exalted orbs and I've just gotten like leech mana or something, or leech this one. Like it could make an item so much better if it was just something else. It's got some work to be done, but I think they will address it. I mean, they're already working on something that people have been looking forward to, which is that the trading system. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but I caught some talk of that, and that sounds like it's going to be a pretty big win.
We definitely can talk about trading, dude. Yeah, one final thought about essences in PoE 2 that kind of echo your sentiment. I feel like for the most part, as an SSF player, I really very rarely interact with essences, and it's not because I don't think that they're cool or usable. I think that they are very rare to find, especially the essences that I want. Like, for example, Greater Essence of Haste is something that you, of course, want to use on those level 82 base boots so you can roll 35% move speed. But every time I use an Essence of Greater Haste, dude, it's like 15%, like 20%. I'm like, boys, like, come on. Like I have I found 4 of these greater essences of haste in my whole like level 96 character. And every time I've slammed a boot with it, it's just been like the crap roll. You know what I mean? Like there needs to be maybe a threshold of like greater essence modifiers are like tier 3 at tier 2 and tier 1, or like something like that, where like you have a better chance of getting the thing you want rather than like just rolling through the various like the whole pool of tiers basically from an essence.
Yeah, exactly. I can't tell you how many times I've used like essences of battle or greater essences of battle, which can apparently roll plus melee skill. I don't think I've seen it a single time. That's where I'm at when it comes to essences. I haven't seen it one time. It's always like, hey, here's some like cold damage on your weapon. I'm like, okay, man, this must be like my 100th time using it. I haven't seen not even a +1 to melee skill, not a single time.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I love about SSF is that it forces you to have to engage with these like crafting systems, and it helps me create like the most clear picture of like kind of where we're at right now. Because honestly, if I was playing trade, I would just sell those things like instantly, because the return on investment for what you're using them for is basically non-existent, where you could sell your greater essence of whatever for however many exalted orbs and then just purchase something that you you are desiring, which is not the way it should work. That should be more of a trade-off with like, I could use this or I could sell it. It's not like a insta sell like sort of thing, which is just how I kind of feel like essences are right now in PoE 2. Yeah. So let's talk about trade. So we got some interesting news. Jonathan Rogers, one of the co-founders, co-directors of Path of Exile 2 and Grinding Gear Games, he went on a podcast with I believe it was a Japanese streamer or a Korean. I'm sorry for mixing that up if I'm getting that info wrong. He said that in the game, there is a trading system that is being worked on right now for Path of Exile 2 that is going to be released before the launch of 1.0, the full launch of the game. Give me your tinfoil hat theory right now. I know we talked about trade in our previous episode, but what do you think they're cooking? How do you think they're going to handle it?
I mean, it's got to be the only direction, and this might just be this might be me hoping, but it would be a more automated trading system. Again, something like an auction house. Yeah, just or like just something that works like the currency exchange. Hey, you put an item up for a certain amount, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up the next day and you see your item is sold or something. That would feel so good to me. I don't know. Again, I get that they're trying to enhance or heighten, what's the word, they're just trying to make player interactions more frequent, I guess, like in between players when you do a trade, so you have to message each other and stuff. But dude, the amount of like bots and like price fixers and stuff on the trade site is just so insane. There's so many times where you just don't get a response. And I mean, what is the interaction between players usually? It's like, hey, I show up to their hideout, they put this item up, I put my currency up, boom, the trade is done. He says, hey, thanks man, good luck. And I say, thanks dude. That's the extent of the interaction. It's nice, but it's really not that like interesting. There's not a whole lot to it. So I am all for like a more automated trading system. It would just save so much time. I value my time these days, and it would save so much time. And I don't know if it would like, I think the price fixers and the bots, I don't know if they'll go away. They won't, but at least you can like, I don't know, you won't have to like spend time messaging them to see if they're real or not and things like that.
Absolutely. There's a theory right now, another tinfoil hat theory that I think would be super cool. And it kind of goes back to like, I don't know if you ever played this MMO called Maple Story. So what Maple Story did was they had a free market and you could go into these rooms. And with these rooms, you could set up a shop. And in this shop, you could list items for sale and players could go and shop between these different rooms and shop around and look at these items. And you could leave little messages and be like, hey, I'll buy this item off of you for, a little bit of a deal. So there's still is that like player interaction where you can haggle with people and stuff like that and directly message them, but it still allows you to not have to be logged into the game 24/7. I mean, back in MapleStory days, if you were broke and a peasant, you had to buy like the player shop where you actually had to leave your character in there, or you could buy the more expensive shop for more money. But I think that would be super cool, having something that you leave in your hideout, that you put your items on, and then players can go into your hideout and trade with them, or you could leave your merchant NPC in a market of some kind. I think that'd be super cool because it would still have that player to player interaction that that Grinding Gear Games has been holding so dear to their heart with the way that the current trading system works. But it would also allow for automation, the ease of trade, the lack of being logged in 24 hours a day just to be able to get that upgrade. It's not working, guys. We obviously know that, and it's super exciting to hear that is coming to the game in some way, shape, or form before 1.0. I got to tell you, dude, I might be logging into trade with you when that happens.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't play Maple Story, but I had a bunch of friends that did, so I know of it, adjacently. But that system sounds better to me, obviously, than what they have in place right now. I'd obviously prefer like the more instantaneous, like auction house version, but that I would totally take too. Like that sounds fine. There's still, like you said, there's still the player interaction, and you don't have to be logged in the whole time. It would still save you a lot of time overall, just knowing that there's a buyer who maybe visited and saw something they wanted, like while you're sleeping again, and then they're like, oh yeah, I'll just leave this message saying that I'm interested in this, and you just kind of go back and forth in that way. You don't have to be online at the same time to actually give them the item in your hideout. Yeah, that sounds way better to me too.
Dude, it was so fun. Like there was a certain excitement that I would get, and I've gone back and played MapleStory quite a bit throughout my adult life as well, because I really do hold that MMO fondly to me. But when I went to bed after like putting my shop up and having items listed for like millions of dollars, and waking up and being like, oh, I have to go check my shop and see like what's sold and like get my money and like all that stuff. Like it was fun. It was fun logging into the game with that, right? Like it was another reason to log in. And I think that is
like Christmas morning or something, right?
Exactly, dude. Every day with Christmas morning when you were playing MapleStory and you had a shop, which is super cool. And I think like that would just add this like another exciting reason to log into the game, not only to play the game, but it would allow you to fulfill that merchant role that a lot of people love to do. And yeah, just like it'd be fun and super easy. So fingers crossed that they don't mess that up, because that is going to be a game changer for me. I might end up playing hardcore trade instead.
Yeah.
So let's
yeah.
talk
I
about.
don't think they could. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. Sorry. I want to move on to the end game stuff here because we talked a lot about the campaign here, guys. But we do, you know, I have a little bit of experience with the end game. I'd love to get, you know, your experience, Lex, on how your, you know, vibe has been after getting through the campaign, getting through that sort of, as we call it, a slog. Where do you stand with the end game right now, and what have you been interacting with?
Yeah, so for the end game, I've basically just been running maps. I think I'm at like tier 10-ish maps now. I'm basically just specking my atlas in a way where I'm getting, you know, there's a bigger chance to find like tier, you know, maps of a higher tier in like every map that I run. So I've just been basically grinding maps. It's been fun. I've been enjoying it. It was weird at first though, because I feel like, and maybe I'm like misremembering my Path of Exile 2 experience, but for me, it felt like it was harder defensively, like in maps when I first started. I feel like I was getting like really nuked down and killed actually a few times when I started maps. I was like, wow, my elemental resistances are all capped. My chaos resistance isn't great, but it wasn't even chaos attacks that were killing me. Things are just hitting so hard, and it like makes me, even now I'm like considering, should I respec for more survivability, because my damage is okay, but I'm just noticing these hits and they're hitting. You know, I'm getting hit really hard. So it's probably my like gear, my character build, etc., that just needs some tweaking. But yeah, I mean, maps have been cool. I've been enjoying some of the mechanics I've been running across. I like it feels a little fast, but I do like that there are some quests that kind of guide you to like, you know, different mechanics. You know, there's like the whole having Maven watch you fight bosses thing, and then there's like this other devourer thing. There's like, yeah, I'm starting now to like kind of progress through these like quests that are presented before you, and it's been pretty cool overall. Yeah, but I just, a part of me just like wants to go back to Path of Exile 2's endgame, even though it's like so incomplete compared to this. I just remember when I first opened the Atlas in the Atlas tree in Path of Exile 1, it took a little bit of effort to not bounce just then, because it was so like just so bloated. There's so much going on, and I remember it made me think of Path of Exile 2's Atlas tree, where, you know, you have like the main one, and then you have like each specific mechanic has their own little tree, and not all of your points apply to all those trees. You know, you like do some breach stuff, you get some breach specific points when you kill Zesht, you spec 2 points there, and then you kind of go from there. That felt like a better way to go about it to me. Because again, when I first opened that Atlas tree in Path of Exile 1, I was like, whoa. I mean, it's cool that there are all these options, but it's all connected to one massive tree. And I was like, that it's a little intimidating, but you know, I'm sticking with it for a bit to try and navigate it best I can.
For sure. Yeah, no, I had the same experience too, where like you open up the Atlas tree in PoE 1 for the first time. And I think it all comes down to where you start. Like in PoE 2, in both the skilled passive tree and the Atlas passive tree, you're starting in the middle and you're branching out from that in various directions. So it's kind of like, oh, if I want to go, you know, for strong boxes and shrines, it's, you know, over here. If I want to go for essences, it's over here. But with PoE 1s, it's like you're starting at the bottom, literally at, like, you know, shout out to Drake's songs or whatever, but you're starting at the bottom and then you're working your way up to these different things, and you kind of have to go through areas that you might not want to get to the places that you do want to. And I found that was a bit less intuitive than like in Path of Exile 1 or 2, where you're moving in the direction you want to and you're just picking up all this useful stuff as you like kind of spread out through the tree. Was there anything that you also like spec'd into in the Atlas tree as you like have gotten up to tier 10 maps? Like I personally did scarabs and shrines, just because I really like shrines in both games, and I really liked scarabs in Path of Exile 1. I thought that those were cool. I could like influence my maps with like league mechanics that I was enjoying. What were you sort of like experiencing and specking into?
Yeah, I think Scarabs is actually up next for me, because I'm realizing that they are really useful in that way for putting, you know, those mechanics that you want to see in your maps more consistently. But I mean, for me, I just made a beeline like straight up the middle just to get to those nodes that would increase the tier of your map. So that's where a lot of my points went, was just going into increasing the tiers of your maps, and like certain, like I think you can get these scouting reports that lets you re-roll the missions that you get from I can't remember the NPC's name, but that's it. That's all kind of there in that cluster, just the tier up stuff and that's just what I wanted to get. I wanted to get to the higher tiers of maps like as quickly as possible. So that's where all of my points went. But now I think I am going to go pursue like the Scarab stuff. And then I have to settle on like which specific league mechanic that I enjoy most or I find most useful. And then I'll probably start speccing some points into that too.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. I really like how you don't have to progress through the tiered bosses like you do in PoE 2 to get like points put into that league mechanic that you're interested in. Like I really enjoyed Blight in Path of Exile 1. I thought that was a super kind of quirky like tower defense game that was fun, and I was getting cool items from the chest and stuff like that. And I was getting those anointment oils that you can use to like anoint items and stuff like that. I never did actually anoint anything, but I have some of the oils, and so it was cool to think that like if I like that, I can just go in that direction and spec into that and make sure that like that content is like improved in whatever way. Whereas in PoE 2, it really felt like you had to experience that content and go through it and progress through it before you could actually spec into it. So yeah, those are some of the differences that I kind of noted through my experience. But it sounds like you have to like pick. So which one are you leaning into more? Like which is the league mechanic that you're like the most enjoying the most so far in PoE 1?
It was weird because I tried out. I wasn't sure yet, but most recently, what I've been settling on is delves. I actually really like the delve thing, where you're going through the mine and you're like you have to worry about the darkness mechanic, and as you're like trying to follow this cart, you have to stay close to the cart because you'll take damage at the darkness, and the cart has light. But I like that mechanic. I don't know why. Just the loot feels good. Just being attacked while you're trying to keep up with the cart feels good. Sometimes mobs will like freeze you in like a bunch of in some walls, and it kind of freaks you out because the darkness starts encroaching and stuff like that. So that I found like pretty engaging and pretty challenging, and I've been really enjoying that. So delving most recently is kind of the mechanic that I've been digging the most. I've obviously come across a bunch of the other ones too, but kind of mixed feelings about it. Like the trial master, you run into the chaos trial stuff. I'm not sure what it's called actually in Path of Exile 1, but you know what I mean. Like the Chaos Trial Master will have you go through the trial just kind of on the spot. It's like a little AoE that you have to stay in, and like you can, get better and better rewards. And that feels okay, but it made me miss like the fully fledged version of the trial in Path of Exile 2. I think I prefer that over the kind of the mini version in Path of Exile 1. I thought the going back in time, the vol mechanic with Alva was interesting. Maybe I'm just really bad at it, but I'm just like, why am I not gaining any time? I'm like clearing things as fast as I can, and I'm just getting warped back without barely achieving anything. So I think I have to figure that out a little more. I feel like that could be good and could be cool, but I just haven't figured it out yet on my end. And yeah, there's just like a bunch more. I heard a lot of good things about there's like an ambush one that has to do with strong boxes or something that I heard is like a really fun one. But yeah, there's again, it's almost like analysis paralysis, where there's so many different ones that are presented at once. I'm just like, I don't know which ones to try out. But the ones I have tried out, the delve is currently my favorite, I think, out of all the ones that I have tried out. That's how I'd leave it.
Yeah, I really like Delve, and Delve is one of the ones that you experienced pretty early on in the campaign too. So that was one of the ones that I actually like gave a chance, because as I progressed through the campaign, I just was like, guys, stop showing me league mechanics. I just want to like play through the campaign and then
Right.
like get to the end game, and then like I would love for you to just show me all the league mechanics. But yeah, it was cool to see, the various things that exist in PoE 1, and how you can really just like, if you want to just do delve only, you can just be like a delve main and just do delve and reap all the rewards. The Just to highlight something that you said, it really feels like it's tough to know which one to maybe get into first. But what Scrimps told me that I think was really good advice that I wish that I had gotten, but obviously playing blind, I didn't want any sort of advice, was find the one that you really enjoy. Don't worry about the overwhelming feeling of FOMO, of like missing out on like certain other rewards from other league mechanics. Find the one that you really enjoy and just start doing that, and then move on to a next one. But when you're doing it, obviously like look stuff up, like play through and try and understand like what are the benefits of doing this one thing that I really enjoy. And then over time, step by step, you'll start doing that for every single league mechanic. And that's sort of the approach that I think I would take if I went back to PoE 1 and played on the same character. Was like, try and lock in on one thing. Maybe I just want to do ritual and see what ritual has to offer, and then really just go all in on that. I really think that Ritual and Path of Exile 1 and 2 are pretty much the same for the most part. So it might be like a good like crossover, you know what I mean? But yeah, it just feels like there's a lot of things that you can get from all of these league mechanics, and it's hard to know like, what one do I do first? Do I want to anoint stuff? Do I want to get, some more ritual omens? Like which is the thing I should do at this moment?
Right, right. And I would say, yeah. So for me, obviously, that would probably be Delves at the moment. I'm probably just going to push that as far as I can. I am enjoying it. I do like. I forgot to mention that I do like the tower defense one too. It's so goofy and it was so random. Like I remember slowly coming to the realization of what was going on when I first ran into that event in the sewers in Act 3. I was like, "What is this?" And then as soon as you start it, you see a bunch of like hammer symbols pop up. I'm like, "What?" And just going to each one and be like, "Oh man, is this a tower defense?" And it just kind of slowly confirms my thoughts. I was like, that is so funny to have in an action RPG that I love it. So that's probably another one that I'm going to pursue at some point. And I know that the anointment oils, like you said, those are clearly very useful. So I'm probably gonna you're gonna need those to kind of max your character out at some point. So that might be the second thing that I pursue. I really like both of those league mechanics. They're very fun.
Yeah, Blight was super fun. It was just something that I had never experienced in an ARPG, and I don't know if it necessarily like would translate over to PoE 2 well. I mean, PoE 2 is just a very slow, a much slower game, so maybe they would have to just incorporate that encounter in a slower way, or maybe in a new zone. There's a lot of these league mechanics that teleport you into a new area, and that's something that we don't actually see in PoE 2 at all yet. We only see these league mechanics happening in the map that we're in and interacting with it in that particular map. So I would expect to see something that teleports you into a new area at some point, like whether it's for Blight or for Delve or something like that. But yeah, man, that's super cool. I feel like you have a long journey ahead of you if you're going to keep playing PoE1 just to sort of mess around with all these things. And I feel like from the sound of your voice, it sounds like you're not reluctant to do that, but there is this sort of like, in the back of your mind, like, like I could just be like playing PoE2 right now.
Yeah, for me, it's like I wonder if it's just like again a familiarity thing because I would say that you could probably say this too. Neither of us are like PoE1 experts by any means, but we are definitely very knowledgeable when it comes to PoE2, and that's like where my maybe my comfort zone is or something. But I know a lot about Path of Exile 2, and I know how the mechanics. We played it since it basically released, and we're very familiar with a lot of the deeper like end game mechanics and just like all sorts of stuff. Path of Exile 1, there's we're not as familiar, but also there's just so much information. So it is again. So I'm pursuing Delves, but like you said, even pursuing Delves, I'm gonna have to look up like a bunch of stuff about it just to make sure I'm not necessarily doing it right, but like what all I can get from it and things like this. And probably have to do the same with Blight. It's just a lot of stuff to look up. And as much as I want to wing it, which you can, I think it's kind of boils down to like a time thing where you should look up stuff if you want to save some time. You're not really spoil anything. It's just going to take a lot longer to figure things out if you don't look stuff up when it comes to even these specific league mechanics. At least that's how I feel. So again, yeah, I feel a drawback to Path of Exile 2 because maybe it's my comfort zone. I know there's like all this stuff I want to do, and I have a very clear direction in Path of Exile 2. I'm like, I want to hop on my Shield Warrior and just like keep farming some like tier 16 plus maps or whatever. Get some Arbiter like attempts in, see if I can get this thing to drop, etc. While in Path of Exile 1, I'm just kind of like, all right, I'm delving deeper. What's gonna happen? I'm not really sure yet. So I gotta look some stuff up, I guess.
For sure. I totally agree with that sentiment. There's only like so far that you can go where you're not respecting your own time anymore. I feel like that's what it comes down to. Where like, I love the magic of discovery in ARPGs. I love the magic of like, the stuff that we felt playing through PoE 2 for the first time. You're figuring out skill synergies, you're discovering the different mechanics and all that kind of stuff. And it is a very special thing to be able to do that basically for the first time, or for you, the first time in a very long time. And so, it's cool that you're conscious of that and preserving that as much as you can. But at the same time, it's like we only got to the level of knowledge that we have with a lot of experience and a lot of like, research and like that's a combination of research and experience as well. So yeah, man, like one thing that I wanted to sort of ask you as a sort of general question is, how did playing PoE1 make you feel about Path of Exile 2?
Oh man, so open-ended. I think like I touched a little bit upon this earlier where I appreciate the pace of Path of Exile 2 a lot more. Not just like speed, like speed wise through the campaign, but also the campaign itself in Path of Exile 2, as it currently is a lot more engaging to me because it's like pretty challenging. You know, it's not overwhelmingly challenging. Maybe your first time through on certain boss fights, but it's challenging enough. You know, where even now when I'm going through the campaign, and you know, we've been going through together on hardcore solo self-found. We've been co-oping that. There are certain bosses we're like still a little nervous on because we know if we mess up royally, we're potentially gonna die. So we have to be, you know, you have to pay attention. I like the challenge. It doesn't feel overwhelming to me, and I like the pacing of your character's strength through the campaign. You know, I never feel like I'm super over leveled or like I'm getting items that aren't worth my time at any point during the campaign. And you know, I wonder how this will change as they introduce more like league mechanics to Path of Exile 2. I don't know if the campaign will become, you know, as cluttered as Path of Exile 1's campaign, you know, with all the league mechanics introduced early. And again, I said I like that because it mixes it up. But Path of Exile 2, currently the pacing to me feels so good, and I wouldn't want that to be interrupted by, you know, something like that. So I'm hesitant for them to add stuff like that, but I think they could probably do it and it wouldn't feel bad or felt like it was interrupting the campaign or anything. So yeah, I mean, overall, I just grew a bigger appreciation for Path of Exile 2. I mean, it's my preferred game, but I do not fault anybody for saying Path of Exile 1 is their preferred action RPG. It is different enough to where I'm like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I can get why it would be somebody's favorite action RPG. It's just not mine. I like Path of Exile 2, the pacing, the boss fights, etc., just so much more.
For sure. Yeah, I think that for me, the moment-to-moment gameplay in PoE 2 is far superior for PoE 1 to PoE 1 for a lot of reasons. You know, the audio, like the music, the audio design, the visuals, the feeling of moving your character, the feeling of using your abilities. I really prefer that over PoE 1. And I think that just comes with like the, you know, 10 years that PoE 1 has evolved, and now we're going even further with PoE 2. One thing that I wanted to touch upon with you that you just mentioned was the campaign in PoE 1 is so full of stuff, and the campaign in PoE 2 is so focused on the experience of progressing through the narrative, through the story. And I feel like what they've done with the existing league mechanics in Path of Exile 2, I mean, granted, there's only two. There's the Asmiri Wisps, spirits, and the Grellwood, and then there's Freythorn, which introduces you to the ritual. But both of the ways that those are interacted with in Path of Exile 2 feel very organic to the actual like experience of the campaign. It doesn't feel like they were just like dropped in and there's a guy with an exclamation mark over their head sort of like being like, click on me. It's more so like, you know, a cool side adventure where like you don't have to go into Freythorn and help out what's his face, the gambling NPC, if you don't want to. Obviously, you're going to miss out on the spirit gem at the end, but like, you know, that's a thing that you can just do on your own accord as a side quest. And I really hope that moving forward in PoE 2, they can sort of integrate these things. I'm almost certain that in Act 4 of the campaign, we will see an expedition side quest or something like that. And in Act 5 or Act 6, we'll see, you know, the breach, introduction to the breach, or the introduction to another thing. But hopefully all I'm trying to say is that when they do introduce these things, it feels like an experience that's part of, or supporting the narrative of the campaign, and not just like a thing that they just like Control C, Control V into the map that you're in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you're basically saying you hope that they would, you know, because the ritual feels like it's integrated pretty well into the story. Yeah, so you're just basically hoping that these other mechanics are integrated well into the story too, right? Just in the later acts.
Yeah, and I think they will be. I think that they very consciously designed the ritual like side quest to be not only beneficial for you to give you the first spirit gem, which is like a super important milestone in your campaign journey, but it also feels like just like a cool thing to do that doesn't necessarily take away from the campaign experience. So I really love that how they handled that, and playing PoE 1 made me sort of realize how much better PoE 2 has done those like introductory things basically. So yeah, that's just like one thing to say. Yeah.
No, I agree. I think, like I said earlier, I enjoyed mixing it up in the campaign in Path of Exile 1 with all those mechanics that they introduced. But at the same time, yeah, they totally do not feel like they're really integrated into the narrative. It's like, hey, here's this extra thing you should check out, you know, like over and over again. So yeah, I totally get where you're coming from.
For sure. All right, bro. So we're at an hour and a half. I just want to check in with you. How are you doing and how are you feeling?
I'm doing pretty good, man. We can keep going.
All right. I have a few more questions. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just want to say this has been awesome to have you on the podcast again. Always love chatting, and especially love to, game with you. Anybody who's listening to this right now, just as a sort of like little plug, Lex and I are doing a co-op hardcore bro found playthrough. We've done about 4 episodes right now. We're just about to fight Doriani. Without dying, without using lightning spear or rake, and no using the pause or reset the checkpoint as well. So if you're interested in seeing me and Lex carry me through the campaign in hardcore, give that a check out. I'll leave a link in the description. So a couple final questions here for you. So this is sort of like a weird question that I've never asked on the pod before, but if you had to sell someone, if you had to sell someone on PoE 1 and PoE 2, what would be your sales pitches for both games? So let's say I'm a friend of yours and you're like, I want to get you into both of these games. How would you sell me on PoE 1 and how would you sell me on PoE 2?
Ooh, that is tough to sell you on PoE 1 versus PoE 2. So on PoE 2, I've actually done this with a friend, but I told them that like it's you like Souls likes, and this is not a Souls like, but it has the challenge of a Souls like and as a dodge roll. So if if you like the the itemization and the loot and stuff like that of an action RPG, but kind of want that extra challenge and stuff like that from a Souls like that you get. I get that same feeling of accomplishment in Path of Exile too. Like I would say Souls likes games, the ones I've played through are more difficult, but it Path of Exile 2 is not an easy game. It is like it's still really challenging, and you could still get royally again messed up if you make a mistake. So that's kind of how I'd pitch it. Is just like it's a hardcore action RPG. It really is. It's like you have to pay attention. It's more for like when you're to be engaged and stimulated rather than to like kind of zone out and disconnect. Is kind of how I describe Path of Exile 2. It's a little more hardcore than your average RPG, and I like that. It's really fun, and I like the challenge. I really like challenging video games. So that's how I pitch that. Path of Exile 1. I mean, I'm already biased though because I like Path of Exile 2 so much. So I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to sell somebody on Path of Exile 1. But I guess I would say if you want an experience that is more like content heavy, like that's the first thing that comes to mind is like, don't be intimidated by the amount of content and don't be afraid to look things up is kind of how I'd pitch Path of Exile 1. There's a lot there. Just don't be afraid to look things up if you ever feel confused or something, because it is a good game. There's just a lot going on, and it's been around for 12 plus years. So you don't feel bad for looking stuff up. It's just chock full of information. I think it's a character builder's paradise. Honestly, that passive skill tree is so elaborate, I would say. So if you really like making character builds, you'll have a fun time in that, especially with all the gems and all the different stuff that you can kind of customize with it. So yeah, if you're looking for an action RPG that has a lot of depth, like so much depth and a lot of information, and you love theory crafting and you like optimizing characters, I would push you towards that game. That's kind of how it would strike me.
I love that. That's beautiful. I think that you hit the nail on the head. PoE 2 definitely has a lot of Souls-like influence with its difficulty, with its like punishment in certain areas of the combat and stuff like that. And I think you hit the nail on the head with Path of Exile 1, where it's like, yes, it is overwhelming, but if you get into it, it really rewards you with the amount of time that you like put into it, basically. And like you can really sink a lot of time. It's also free, which is crazy. It's crazy that both these games are going to be free. That also like always blows my mind that like PoE 1 has been free forever, and PoE 2 will be free forever once it comes out, and it's going to be so damn good. So yeah, man, like, I think that the bottom line is if you're into PoE 2, give PoE 1 a try. You'll really in worst case scenario, you'll really appreciate PoE 2 more. I feel like that's kind of the way where me and Lex ended up on this whole journey, was like we're both PoE 2 Andes. Yep. We both love the game for various reasons, and Path of Exile 1 has a lot of great things going for it, but at the end of the day, we don't hate the game. It's just like I think we just prefer that game more,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I get it. Like people are right to say that Path of Exile 1 is more complicated, more complex. It totally is. But I still prefer like the more, streamlined version of things than Path of Exile 2. it's a little bit of a time thing, but also, it's still like complex enough for me is how I describe it. Path of Exile 2 passive skill tree is definitely not as crazy as Path of Exile 1, and neither is its Atlas tree, but it's still like complex enough. You're still making a lot of decisions that like will affect things differently. So that's kind of how I'd put it as well. I just prefer it, even though acknowledging it's a little more streamlined and a little bit more simple than Path of Exile 1, but I would not call it like a simple game. It's still got a lot going on and a lot of like different things to look into.
Dude, if the roles were reversed and we had been playing Path of Exile 1 for like since it came out, basically, it would totally be different. I could definitely see like Path of Exile 1 is such a freaking good game, especially if you've been playing it for so long, because you've seen the development of it over time. You've gotten into it at the ground level, like the way that we gotten into it at Path of Exile 2. And over time, all of this sort of stuff has occurred, but it's allowed you to kind of keep up with it rather than getting like dropped into the ocean and being like, oh my God, there's a shark there, there's a whale there, there's a friggin' hammerhead, whatever, it's just, there's just a lot. But I feel like, if you have been playing the game for time, it's so damn good because there's just a lot going on for it. One thing that I wanted to ask you as sort of a like closer to this, so I'm gathering that you watched the beautiful piece of content that Chris Wilson put on the internet. He did an interview with David Brevik, the founder, one of the creators of Diablo and Diablo 2 and Blizzard North, and he had a little bit of an interesting final segment to that interview where he dropped that after his year of traveling, I'm talking about Chris Wilson, by the way, after his year of traveling and leaving, Grinding Gear Games, he has now started his own game development company or game development studio called Light Pattern. Give me your sort of insights as to what you think Chris Wilson is up to. Do you think he's dropping us another ARPG in the future? Where do you stand with that?
It's so interesting. So I watched, the vast majority of that interview. It was really fun to watch too, just hearing them. They were basically just praising the hell out of Diablo 2, and just like how it was so foundational for so many, not just action RPGs, but so many games. Like the idea of a skill tree most likely came from Diablo 2, and that was implemented in so many different forms into different games. They even mentioned like World of Warcraft, and that was a big reason I loved World of Warcraft was the talent trees in that game and just like theory crafting different ways to make your character better, stuff like that. So that was a cool interview, definitely to watch. As far as what Chris Wilson is up to, I can't say for certain, but if I had to guess, it's like one of two things. One, perhaps another action RPG or action RPG adjacent game, but that feels like it'd be too obvious maybe, so I don't know if that's really going to be the case. The other one that I had that I've read about, people say that he was really, really into Magic the Gathering, so it could be like an online trading card game of some kind, something like a Hearthstone or a Gwent or something like that, which I'd be totally down for. I actually spent a lot of time playing games like that for a while in my like gaming career or whatever. So I'd be super down to try out a TCG if that's like what's in development.
Yeah, it almost seems like he's already made that perfect sequel to Diablo 2 that he set out to do. And so, he was talking to David Brevik quite in depth about, I love how you talked about the skill tree. Dude, I didn't know that Diablo 2 was the game that invented skill trees. Like that is insane. Like how much has that concept has been used in so many games now, adding RPG elements into everything from Stardew Valley to, as you mentioned, World of Warcraft. Like there's all these different things that Diablo 2 basically pioneered, which is amazing.
I remember hearing that and be like, there's no way that was the first game to do it. And I like thought about it. I was like, well, I don't think I really saw it before then, to be honest, because it's so widespread now,
100%. Yeah, it was super cool hearing like Chris Wilson talk to the person that inspired him to become a game designer. Like the reason why Chris Wilson and Jonathan Rogers and I forget who the other fellow was, who was like one of the co-founders of GGG. The reason why they started that was to make a Diablo 2 sequel. So the fact that they could sit down and talk about that on the 25th year anniversary, oh my God, I'm old, of Diablo 2. It's just crazy, man. But yeah, I think my take from that interview was that I don't think it's going to be an ARPG. I could be proven wrong. They could be doing something that's ARPG, like that's an ARPG, but he's already done that. You know what I mean? It would be like, it'd be like you doing this crazy shield warrior build, your character, maxing it out, doing tier 4 everything, and then being like, all right, time to start a new shield warrior. You know what I mean? It's like you just did that. Like you just spent all this time doing that. Like why are you doing it
I
again?
feel attacked. That's just all I do in Path of Exile. I just make shield warriors over and over again in different leagues.
Yes. But it's like he's already basically figured out how to make a really good sequel to Diablo 2. So I love the idea that he's working on some sort of Magic the Gathering or trading card game simulator. I don't even know what that looks like, but it was really cool to hear how, you know, he was inspired yet again by David Brevik, because David Brevik obviously started his own publishing company, but he developed his own game by himself. I haven't played it yet, and I can't remember what it's called. Sorry about that, guys. But I'm sure if you look it up, you know, he had a project that he did everything for. You know, the graphics, the coding, the music, everything. And it made Chris Wilson feel inspired to kind of do that again, where he was like, wow, you got to make all of the creative decisions. You didn't have to be a CEO of a company with 100 different people and, you know, basically never touch a piece of code.
Real quick, was that when they were talking about the pixel art thing? Because I think I remember them talking about that game. I looked it up. I also can't remember the name, but I'm pretty sure I remember that part of the interview too, right? Where he did all, yeah, that's right. Okay, I remember.
Yeah. And so, yeah, he was talking about how he got to like make all of these creative decisions all on his own. And it was cool to see kind of Chris Wilson's eyes light up and be like, whoa, like that's kind of what I'm doing now again with my new company, where, you know, I'm getting my hands on with this game again. I'm getting to make these choices. I don't have to run them by CEOs and Tencent investors and all these different things. And, you know, I'm excited because I think any project, I think my biggest example is like games like Stardew Valley. Any project that has one person's vision being directly created and without too much interference with anything else, it ends up being such a great project because they, you know, it's that person's like raw vision coming through, right? So yeah, I don't know what game to expect, but he said that he had a lot of inspiration from Diablo 2 for this next game. I don't know what that means. It could be isometric. It could be have RPG elements. There's so many points of inspiration that Diablo 2 could give anybody. So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's interesting. So it sounds like he wants to be, you know, have that like indie garage coder kind of feel when it comes to like developing games, which is totally cool in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, more often than not, I would say, yeah, the vision that you're talking about for when they have like a clear vision, as long as it's a good vision, and they have more creative control over it, does turn out for the better most of the time. I'll give you a counter example though. Apparently, you know, not to get into a whole nother conversation, but Dark and Darker is currently pretty far in the dumps because SDF keeps harping on his vision, right? This is the vision. This is the vision. And people are like, you should listen to some feedback, just a little bit. Trust me, just listen to some of the player feedback. No. This is my vision, and it's continuously going down and down into the dumps. So it's unfortunate to see that game die because I really liked Dark and Darker a lot. I thought it had a lot of potential, but unfortunately, it seems like it's in a pretty bad state at the moment. However, to bring it back to this game, I agree with you. I don't know if it's going to be an action RPG because, again, that seems like too obvious, right? Even though there's a lot of inspiration from Diablo 2, as he stated, I wonder if he's going to somehow like marry the two ideas of action RPG and TCG. You know, a trading card game. I wonder if that's the case. I'd be super curious to see how that turns out.
Absolutely. Someone wrote in the chat, make the game you want to play, but make sure you're not the only one who likes playing it. And
yes,
I think
exactly.
I think there's so much truth to that. And I think that's how Path of Exile started was, you know, all of these guys were just Diablo 2 like worshipers. They loved the game. And they wanted to make a game similar to that they also wanted to play because they didn't want to play Diablo 3. They didn't want to play these other ARPGs that were kind of in the mix at the time. And so, yeah, like to follow up with your Dark and Darker stuff, I mean, we can talk about that sort of as a closing section of the podcast because I do think it's fascinating and we do have a shared passion for Dark and Darker. Like I watched some of the videos that you sent to me on Discord. The one video that I found was absolutely fascinating was the one by his name was Not Like This, and it was called How Iron Mace Failed Dark and Darker's Players. And this guy literally like handled this like a lawyer would. He had all of this evidence. He was breaking it down, interviews, screenshots. Like it was actually mind-blowing. You know, coming from a content creator, we can all appreciate when someone goes above and beyond for a video. And I think that guy's video really helped me kind of get caught up with like what's happening there, which is actually really sad because, you know, in a similar vein to the way that we love GGG and we love Path of Exile, it's because we want to support the developers that we believe in. Grinding Gear Games is creating a game that we believe in, and we believe in the developers because they have the players' best interests at the heart of their game design. And it just sounds like Dark and Darker and Iron Mace, they had this sort of facade where like, oh, we're a merry band of developers who like used to create really bad game design for like this is on their website. They wrote that like we're a merry band of like game developers who were responsible for making some like really predatory monetization structures in games. And they like framed Dark and Darker as like the solution to that, like their reckoning, where they're like, yo, we're going to create a game that's like not like that at all. But it really kind of wasn't like that. Like you can kind of go through the monetization and see in Dark and Darker that like this is a game just made by Nexon developers that are still Nexon in the heart. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's unfortunate the course that it took, because I don't know if it's just SDF or there are other people who are kind of going along with it, or again, since it's like his vision, he's the CEO and they're all, unfortunately at his whim. I don't know. But again, in that video, it sounds like it isn't just SDF and that other people are on board. Yeah, that video that by Not Like Us or Not Like This. Is it Not Like This or Not
Like
Us?
This? Yeah.
I think it's Not Like This. Yeah, that's right. He it's a great video. He is not afraid. He just calls out so many different like people, content creators, SDF and just the company Iron Mace. It is so well done. It's at this point for me, it's like I don't play the game anymore, but it is very entertaining to follow the drama around the game. That's like way more entertaining than actually playing it. So that's just how I kept up with it, and that's why I sent you that video, because I know you used to play. I was like, this will just be fun. You probably find this interesting.
Yeah, so it was cool because, I like to consume a lot of like gaming content, and, I don't shy away from drama, especially when it's related to a game that I enjoy. And I did really believe in like the Dark and Darker team and the Dark and Darker game because it was just so fun to play, and it was like a refreshing take on the extraction shooter genre. But yeah, it's really sad to see the way like where it went, and I wouldn't be surprised. It also kind of opened up my eyes as to like how many people are actually like paid shills of a game. Like
I know
they leaked those like DMs of like SDF being like, we're gonna pay you to like play whatever all these games, and it's like, how many people out there are actually like that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, GGG.
Right.
Let's go. Pay me. I'll shill for your game any day, baby.
Well, to end it, basically, to end that whole thought for me, it's like what you said about GGG is that what gives me so much faith in them is that they have a proven track record of being like really good devs and listening to community feedback and implementing really good changes and acknowledging when they mess up, et cetera, et cetera. They're really just like, I honestly struggle to think of like a better dev team that I've like read about and have like experienced. I've experienced a lot of their hot fixes that they put into Path of Exile 2, and like the vast majority are for the better. It's like awesome. They're really, really on it. And how transparent they are in all these interviews. They're so good. Iron Mace, on the other hand, Dark and Darker's dev team, we were sold on them perhaps being like that, but they didn't have a proven track record. So it doesn't, it doesn't surprise me the path that it's taken. Because I'm like, oh, well, we didn't really know what they were like until, it came to it, it came down to it, like all these different changes and them having to prove themselves as developers. So yeah, that's kind of why, I'm still full on in Path of Exile 2. I really like GGG as a dev team. And yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to be playing this game for a long time.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that I really like about the people who are sort of like people in the community of GGG and of Path of Exile is that even though they may be related to the development team in some sort of way, it always feels like the content creators of Path of Exile are always giving feedback, constructive criticism, making the game feel better. They're allowed to speak their mind in terms of like what they don't like, and that helps GGG make these like correct decisions, basically. And it kind of felt like, it opened my eyes up to a lot of other companies who like have these basically influencers or content creators who basically just never say anything too constructive or too like open-ended or open-minded about the game. It's very much so like, I'm just gonna like glaze this game and that's it, basically. You know what I mean? So
yeah. There are two sides to that too. There are people who are either just that will just glaze the game, or that, as we talked about, I think in the previous episode, that will just fuel the flames of like complaining and toxicity. And it's like, it's unfortunate that there are audiences that will buy into it, but well, what can you do? That's like almost a tale as old as time, I feel like.
For sure. All right, guys. Well, we ended this podcast in sort of a weird angle where we went into the dark and darker drama, but you know what? We went for it, and it is interesting. If you're a dark and darker enjoyer, check out the video from Not Like This called "How Iron Mice Failed the Dark and Darker's Player Base." It is an absolutely incredible video. And yeah, dude, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. When I end these podcasts, I love to get you to plug yourself. Where can we find you, and what are you working on?
Oh yeah, sure. So you can find me on YouTube. I mostly, stream to YouTube and make videos. So the channel is just Lex LEXD. I'm pretty sure that's all it is. I don't think it's Lex TV. I have that as my handle for other things. So just look up Lex on YouTube. I'm the Shield Warrior guy. A lot of warrior stuff, warrior guides, and I mean, currently I'm just going to be making more Path of Exile 2 content after I finish up Path of Exile 1. I think I want to give my take on the end game of Path of Exile 1 in its own video if I am able to stick with it. I don't hate what I'm running into, but it's feeling like a lot, and I'm feeling the urge to bounce off, but I'm just going to stick with it. So keep an eye out for that. And obviously I think whenever the next big patch drops for Path of Exile 2, I'm going to be making a lot of content again too, because right now I feel like I'm kind of coasting. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of what's floating around in my mind at the moment. And yeah, I mean, we ended this podcast, in my opinion, on a good note, man. We like reaffirmed our faith in GGG, shouted them out again. So I think the progression made sense to me, right?
For sure. Yeah, man. I agree. And yeah, so guys, make sure to check out Lex's content. I will leave a description in the video, I'll leave a link in the video description as always. I'm looking forward to seeing sort of what your take is on the end game. That type of video is such a time-intensive video, because to give a comprehensive experience of the end game in Path of Exile 1, you have to spend a lot of time in there. And that was the thing that I sort of came to realize. And I think that you obviously realize that as well. So yeah. I'm curious to see like how far you go, where you end up going. If you get addicted, like that's another angle that we could not see Lex for like 3 months, and then he just comes out like Quagmire with his giant forearm after he discovers porn and be like, "Hey Peter, just getting the mail." And I'm like, "Oh Lex, where you been, buddy?" "Oh, been playing Path of Exile 1.
My arm will be that big from the point to click movement. It'll just be that over and over again, right?
Oh my god! All right, bro.
We'll see. That would be a huge plot twist. If I get addicted to Path of Exile 1.
It could be the way, guys. I'm calling it here. You heard it here first. If he decides to go deep, he could end up going down the rabbit hole, and we won't see this man for a little while. So I'm excited to see where you go with the end game video. And I'm excited to see any other PoE stuff that you make. You make great videos. So I gotta give you props. Like your build guides are so in depth, so detailed, and like you're so knowledgeable about the stuff that you know, and you know Shield Warriors better than I think most people do. So it's awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly why I can claim myself as like the authority on that, because I only, I like to tunnel vision one class and one playstyle and just like experiment with it with every angle that I can, or from every angle that I can. And I mean, yeah, right back at you, man. Your podcast is awesome. Your videos are great. Your most recent one is awesome. I'm going to be watching every one.
Hell yeah, dude. All right, man. Well, we will talk soon. I'm actually, guys, just a PSA for anybody who's watching this live. I'm taking a couple weeks off for work. I'm going on a work trip for 3 weeks. So I'm going to be staggering these podcasts as they come out in the following weeks, just to make sure that my channel doesn't die, because I don't want to just drop 3 podcasts and then leave for 3 weeks. So this podcast will be released in a week or so, but you can expect another episode coming out tomorrow and another episode coming out the following week after that. All right, my friend, it's been an absolute pleasure, and we will talk soon and hopefully get to pick up on our hardcore playthrough, at least get to Cruel before the new Path of Exile 2 stuff comes out.
Definitely. We'll just start a new run, if we don't get to the end game or something, right?
For sure, bro. All right, man. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace out, Joe. Yo, we did it. We did the damn thing. Oh, and he hung up. All right. Usually we do like an... Oh. Oh, I was about to start talking to chat. I was like, usually we do like an after pod, just like couple, remarks and stuff like that. But yeah. Yo, Studio Jack, thank you for the follow. Oh, okay. We're coming back. Guys, we're coming back. Hey, there he is.
Sorry.
How did that go, man? How did you feel?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it. I again, it's cool because we shared so much. I mean, we were talking back and forth a good bit, but yeah, our Path of Exile 1 experience was very similar coming from Path of Exile 2. We only differed on like a few things, but even on the points we differed on, I was like, oh yeah, I could totally see why somebody would see it that way, you know. So yeah, very similar. Yeah, man, it's cool. Again, I enjoyed talking about Path of Exile and whether it's 1 or 2, but probably be sticking to 2 a little bit more once I'm done with this most recent experience.
I mean, yeah, dude, it's cool because our experiences are so similar, and I feel like not a lot of people are having those experiences with this game. Like, there's not a lot of people that have played so much Path of Exile like we have, like Path of Exile 2, but barely have experienced PoE 1 in its entirety. And so it was really cool to hear that, like, despite our lack of PoE 1 experience, we both kind of played through the game and had very similar takes. And you know, myself being someone who's like never stepped foot in Ray class basically, and yourself who hasn't stepped foot in like 10 years, like it was just
Yeah.
dope to hear that like we were on the same page. So yeah, man, like I don't know what to say to you about the end game, dude. Like it's such a fucking it's such an ocean of shit. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like the one blocker for me, like making that video. I'm like, I want to, but I might like be on the fence a bit because I feel like if I make it, you know, I'm gonna get comments being like, "Hey, you didn't spend like at least 60 hours doing this mechanic, so you don't really know what it's like," or something, you know. So like, I'm just wondering, you know, I'm gonna give it my all, but if I'm not like enjoying myself, if I find a point where I'm not enjoying myself, I'm probably not
All
going
right.
to do it. If I feel like, you know, I'm both not enjoying myself and I haven't given the end game its like due time. But we'll see, because right now I am still mostly enjoying myself. So you know, I'm still just going through. It's fine. I find it difficult to try and progress. I find it difficult right now to like keep progressing on a build that I've like slapped together. So I might start looking a few more things up. Because yeah, it just feels like I'm getting to a point where I need to optimize a little bit. I need like a little extra so I'm not getting like destroyed.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Dude, I just looked at my video and it already has 20 comments. What the fuck? Dude,
Nice, man.
it's actually, and it has already 200 views. Bro, what? That is fucking crazy, boys. Holy shit. Yeah, we're gonna
You're gonna
get
have to
some
show
heat
me
from this.
the
We're gonna get
stats
some
on
heat
that.
from this video for sure. We're gonna get some heat, boys. Oh my god.
Oh,
Yeah, we
for
got some,
sure.
we got some,
It's
we
gonna be
got some
good.
people. Okay, we got some comments here. Let's pull these up and then yeah, we can if you want to, are you hanging out? We can look at some of these if you want.
Let's look at them, and then I probably got to get going because the kid's sleeping, and I got a few things to wrap up on my end, errands wise.
Don't leave me, bro. We only get so much time to hang out. I'm trying to
I
guys,
know.
can we just chain this man to this podcast and make him never leave? No, that's weird. Sorry. Take that back.
You'll have to make a third window because I'll just be here every time, and then your guest will just have to be in that third window.
Yeah. All right. So let's look at the let's look at some of these comments that we're getting here on the why can I not talk and do things at the same time? Let's look at these
All right,
comments on the video. Okay, here we go. Let's read some of these. So sorry that you can't see Lex. So we've gotten nice job, good review, great video. These are all nice things to say. Try jump scared himself. I loved putting try in the video. Okay, we got one here. So you like PoE 2 because you can experiment with new things, but you dislike PoE 1 because there's too much to do. Nobody is forcing you to metacraft all of your gear or learn every league mechanic in the game. Take it slow. Play Trade League as if it was SSF, but you can fall back on trade and currency exchange to fill the gaps. Pick 1 or 2 league mechanics that look fun and learn them. So I really like the last part of this segment here, where it's like no one's forcing you to do anything. Take it slow and just play the things that you like are enjoying. The thing is that there's so many things that happen in Path of Exile 1 and they happen so quickly that it's hard to know what one is your favorite because you're like, well, I haven't tried this and I haven't tried this and I haven't tried this. So it's like, you know, I as much as I appreciate this sort of sentiment, it's not that anyone's forcing you to do anything. It's that you're presented with so much stuff at the same time that it's hard to even know what I like. It's like going to a restaurant and it's like going to a buffet and only eating 2 dishes out of the buffet. Like if you go to Mandarin, you're not just eating the chicken balls and the fried rice. You want to try all of the other shit that they cooked so that you can formulate the best opinion of what you like. You're not just gonna like try and only eat the 2 things, you know? What do you think, Lex? Oh my god, I don't have the Discord audio on here. Hold on. Let me add that in.
Am I here? Am I here?
Oh, yep, here you go. Sorry about that.
Can you hear me? Hello, hello.
Yeah. I'm gonna add you in as a guest as well.
Okay, gotcha. Just let me know when I can talk.
Yeah,
'Cause
no,
I have
you're
one
good.
bot on
Talk,
this.
talk.
Good? Yeah. So I think it's like a portion of it is it's not there is a lot to do, but it's like I wonder if it would be better if it was presented more gradually, because there's just so much that feels like, as you put it in your video, it's like an ocean. You're just plopped into an ocean rather than having it like streamed to you a little bit more gradually. You know what I mean? I feel like I'd feel less overwhelmed if it was somehow structured in a way where I could digest each one a little bit more, one after the other, instead of just feeling like it's all like right at the end game, just so much at once, you know?
Yeah. I think with this particular comment, it's really about not so much the fact that anyone's forcing me to do anything, but it's just the amount of like what I phrased in the video was it was information overload. I played SSF, so obviously I was experiencing some of the difficulties of the game that come with playing SSF, of course, like the lack of items and stuff like that. But for the most part, it was more so a sense of overwhelm on the amount of things that I could potentially try to do. Lamau, certain people would only try the 2 things. I mean, everyone's experience is different, right? Like some people go to a buffet and they only eat the 2 things they like, and that's that. They'll get 5 plates of it, and that works for you. But that's not how I like to go to Mandarin. You know what I mean? All right, so. Before PoE 2 early access, they added respecking for gold in PoE 1 in Settlers League. They put the ability on various act vendors as part of making that core, and it's always on the currency exchange, dude, which I don't think you should have touched SSF because it's definitely easy to miss. Well, there you go. See, like, I think for me, SSF is like the true way to experience any game because you have to actually interact with all of the core systems like crafting and etc. And so, yes, now I'm aware that like PoE 1 has gold as respecking, but it's just not something that I really really did. They put that availability on various vendors. I must have missed it. All right.
No, yeah, they put it on one vendor where you can respec using gold, but for me, like the cost is still really high. Like for the amount of gold that you find, in Path of Exile 2, it's like at a certain point you're like, oh, I can just respec freely once you're farming the end game. Even where I'm at now in the end game, I'm like, I'm limited in what I can respec because I have like 60,000 gold and each respec point costs like 3.5k or something like that. I'm like, I have to be quite careful. It's not quite as free yet as Path of Exile 2. Gold feels harder to come across, and the price for respecing gold wise is still like really expensive. So yeah, just throwing that out there.
Totally, dude. It wasn't like in Path of Exile 2 where like by the time you get to endgame, you're just like swimming in mountains of like 5k, 10k stacks of gold. Like gold still very much felt like a scarce resource. And so I'm sad that I missed out on the option to respec via using gold. I think that's a wonderful thing that I would have changed my perspective on the way that I've talked about it in my video. But the fact that I didn't know that that was an option while playing through the whole game is an issue that I don't think was a skill issue necessarily. I think it was a part skill issue and part game design thing. Like if I was guided to that early on in the game or any time while playing the game, it would have been easily discoverable. But for me, because it was
Right.
tied to something that they added in a league mechanic that I was overwhelmed with, you can see where I'm going with this, right? All right. So we got one here from Alex Sterling. As over a decade veteran of PoE 1, these critiques are all on point. For some context, the lack of tutorialization in PoE 1 is intentional. It helped form the community as people would discover things like vendor recipes, which you didn't mention and probably never encountered, and various other hidden secrets. I did actually mention it, and I did encounter it. As the game bloated and the community exploded, the lack of tutorialization is definitely one of its greatest weaknesses, but in the early days, it was actually one of its selling points. I do hope you keep giving PoE 1 a try. I think you will get a kick out of the pinnacle content, as those are the engaging bosses with real mechanics that become a foundation of boss design in PoE 2. I'm with you, though. Can't wait for more PoE 2 goodness. Okay, so this is I was expecting more of a criticism in this comment, but this is actually pretty good.
That's more validation, right?
Yeah, give me the validation.
No, that's good. That's good,
Allow
man.
it to rain
good to
down
hear.
upon me.
Right,
Okay, we got one
right.
here. But for now, PoE 1 is the king of crafting. Have you tried Last Epoch? I wonder which one's better. Thanks for your video. Highly
I've heard good
appreciated.
things. I've heard good things about the crafting and path of or sorry, Last Epoch. But Blaze, unfortunately, I do have to head out now. So I'm going to read these comments on my own time and leave one of my own, obviously. So it's been real fun hanging out with you as always. Yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Guys, everyone say bye to Lex. Dude, thank you so much for today. It's been awesome. And I'll catch you next time, brother.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
Peace. Oh man, I'm so lonely now without Lex. Guys, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do without Lex? My brother's gone. All right, we're gonna read through these last few comments here, and then we're probably gonna wrap up the stream. But I do want to go through a couple of these for you guys, just because I'm not used to having a video get 20 comments immediately upon posting. So we'll talk about this. So we got. Someone said Last Epoch crafting. I love Last Epoch crafting. It's actually amazing. I don't love the game. I don't love the game, like the moment-to-moment gameplay of Last Epoch. I always thought that the character movement was a bit too floaty for me, and it didn't carry enough weight like Path of Exile 2 does. But like on the whole, like there's a lot of really good stuff that Last Epoch does. I can't recommend that game enough. I've been playing it and supporting it since before multiplayer even like came out. So. You know, I love ARPGs. If there's a new player in the scene, I'm always going to say good things about it. If it's a good game, of course. All right, so we got one here from God of Metal. And the only people pushing you to follow build guides are the mouth breathers that want to one-shot an entire map in 20 seconds and can't think for themselves, thinking that that's the way the game is supposed to be played. PoE 2 is proof that devs never intended PoE 1 to be what it is. But people breaking the game systems developed as a meta they couldn't control. Hopefully they maintain PoE 2 well, but remains a game to be played. Yes, this is precisely it. You don't need to min-max, guys. You can just play, discover, enjoy. You don't need to think that like you need to be doing something a certain way because you saw a streamer doing it. That's my whole reason for going in and playing the game blind, is to really get that sense of exploration and discovery that I think is so magic in ARPGs. Okay, so we got one from Diggler. The campaign is long. It's actually 4 times shorter than the one in PoE 2. Strange observation. Or maybe you leveled very slow. Edit. Okay, you took 20 hours to finish the campaign. I see. I guess I forgot how long it could be for a one-day newbie. I'm sorry. So this guy called me out for being slow, but then actually watched the video. I respect that. I really respect that. I really, really respect that. Okay, so God of Metal again. I love PoE 2, but I think they should implement some sort of system to skip the campaign after you complete the campaign once per season. Start you at level 65 with reasonable gear to begin at building a new character. It's a bit of a slog to have to go through that every time you want to test a new class, and people would still have the option to run the campaign again. And then we have a discussion here. LOL. I don't give a fuck if it's 1 hour. That's 1 hour wasted. I don't know what busted YouTube hack job special you're copying that's getting you through the campaign in 4 to 6 hours on average time. Right now it's 20 to 40. And again, you would still be free to... Oh, sorry, Snaggle, I missed your message. But you have to play the game the most perfect way possible with the exact build or you're a loser. What do you mean explore and experience? I see you're very well versed in a language I enjoy. Sarcasm. Okay, that's great. I know. I that's the thing. I don't feel like that's necessary. I love exploring. I love experiencing at your own pace. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's, you know, that's going to really showcase how the game truly is to you. Why not skip to level 100 and have every piece of gear automatically? Better yet, you don't even need to play the game. Just load up PoE. Oh, this is a great comment. I'll save everyone some time. This guy is too dumb to learn PoE 1 and thinks PoE 2 is better because he played it first and doesn't have much depth. Oh man, that's a comment right there, ladies and gentlemen. That's a comment. We're gonna dislike that one right away for sure. Oh man, too dumb to learn PoE 1 and thinks PoE 2 is better. Well, I figure we're gonna get some comments like that in this video, guys. It's not because I'm too dumb to learn PoE 1. It's just a time investment. I chose not to dedicate the time to learn PoE 1. It's not because there's no intelligence factor there. PoE 1 is the most enjoyable in the end game for basically every player. That's sort of trained people to speedrun the campaign. People forget, though, that the campaign is time consuming the first time. Precisely. People forget that playing through the campaign is the way that every new player is going to interact with the game the first time. A new player is going to basically interact with the campaign, and that's going to dictate if they're even going to get to maps, which is what everyone describes as the best part of the PoE 1, myself included. And so if the campaign systems, the campaign flow doesn't feel good to experience as a new player, then those new players aren't ever going to even make it to maps. Plus, PoE used to only be 3 acts, just like PoE 2. Playing the same acts multiple times over also makes you just zone out and zoom. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the campaign average time is 20 to 40 hours, but I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at it in terms of a PoE 2 like blaster at this point, where I can do the campaign like from the beach to maps on PoE 2 in about 10 hours or so. It used to be 1, but it was 3 for a long time. Yeah, we're getting it is free engagement. Yeah, it is free engagement. But yeah, I feel like it you know, we're getting views on the video. It's been doing good so far. I'm excited to hear that a lot of people are enjoying the video. It's already got 328 views. That's crazy. That usually does not happen with my videos. So guys, just a heads up, like if you guys have watched this video, if you've been hanging out for the whole stream, if you guys have come into the stream as like, you know, just part of it for the podcast, or you're part of Lex community, I truly appreciate you hanging out. I love engaging with everybody who I can. I'm sorry that I can't answer as many messages in the chat during the podcast. God, I remember when Act 5 came out and we saw Kitava for the first time. Kitava was one of my favorite bosses. Kitava was so cool. I really love that. And it kind of made me think about, there was a boss in Diablo 3 that was like similar, where you came out from like a pit and like you had to fight him, and you were kind of had this like semicircle of like area where you could fight basically, which was super cool. And it kind of reminded me of that, which I really enjoyed. All right, guys, we're going to wrap up the stream today. Thank you so much for hanging out, guys. Snaggle, I know you're from Lex community. It's great to have you in. Hung Step Bro, appreciate you chilling. I see Last Protagonist has been in here sort of intermittently. Always appreciate you. I probably won't be streaming until Sunday. I have a new special guest coming in on Sunday for the podcast. Super excited. Stay tuned for updates on that.